It is live.
Have you ever heard the parable of what is it? The frog and the scorpion?
Yeah.
Okay. So for anybody who hasn't heard the parable of the frog and the scorpion, there's a frog that wants to cross a river, and the scorpion also wants to cross a river. The frog can just swim, and the scorpion is like, "Can you give me a ride?" And he's like, "No, you're a scorpion. You'll sting me." And the scorpion's like, "I'm not gonna sting you. I'll drown if I sting you." And he's like, "Well, okay." And finally, he convinces the frog to get on his back. So the scorpion gets on his back, and then halfway through, the scorpion stings the frog. And as the frog is drowning and sinking, he's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Like, we're both gonna die, you maniac." And the scorpion was like, "I'm a scorpion." And I think of that parable anytime I hear about the destiny drama. Like, anytime, because it's shitty what he did, right? But also, he's like the Giga Coomer. Like, he's just such a degenerate piece of shit. Like, if you're,
What did they expect of him?
yeah, it's like you jump into a fuck pile with Destiny, and it's being filmed, and you're like, "Oh my God, other people saw it." Well, I mean, yeah, it was shitty of them to show it to other people, but Jesus Christ, man, what did you think was gonna happen? He's a scorpion.
Yeah, that stuff got kind of wild. I mean, I guess listen to all of it. Also, this week, did you see that the whole nuke was dropped on Hassan Piker from H3H3?
I saw that happen. I didn't get to watch any of it. I was
I
starting
only
it.
saw headlines. I didn't see what it actually was.
Yeah, he just H3H3 made like an hour and a half long thing about how he's actually a terrorist or terrorist supporter type stuff. You know,
Oh,
Well, I mean, he had an actual Houthi pirate on stream and cheered him on. So there's that.
maybe it's because they're all vying for the spot of Joe Rogan of the left, and that's why they're.
Yeah, now that Destiny's out, they all went, how did they think Destiny was going to be Joe Rogan of the left? I mean, Joe Rogan was Joe Rogan of the left, I guess, but then he's less left now, I guess. But
Well, what's left anymore? I don't even know what left is.
I know it's hard to say.
Everything that Doge and Trump is doing is everything what I thought a 2005 leftists would have wanted. And they're like, no, not from the orange man.
I know. They're like, they're gonna say, we can't have RFK Jr. in there. He's gonna start going against Big Pharma. I'm like,
no, don't take that Big Pharma. They're our best buddies now.
Wait, aren't you guys leftists?
Yeah, and then
didn't I spend 25 years trying to explain that, like, no, they don't have a secret cure for cancer that they're just keeping in their back pocket so they can become billionaires? I had that argument with 800,000 Democrats all the way, and that just switched on a dime in February of 2020. All of a sudden, oh, Big Pharma has never lied about anything ever.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, because they told it to. Because Colbert and John Oliver started sneering at it, so now they're with it. Yeah, I don't necessarily get it.
We all have our things that we can't handle, right? Like Flip has mentioned a million times, he can't handle liars, and that's admirable. But my thing is cringe. Like, I can't handle cringe, like, or being a pussy. Those are the two things I can't handle. So if you are cringy or a pussy, I can't handle you. And even if the COVID vaccine was just 100%, like, everyone should take it, no side effects, it immediately cures you. If I had seen that Stephen Colbert vaccine shit, I would have been like, oh, fuck this. I can't. Like, you're cringe. You lost me entirely. You're cringe. Fuck off.
The dancing around and singing vaccine. And
like, I got the tetanus vaccine, never had tetanus. Got the polio vaccine, never had polio. I got the MMR, never got mumps, measles, or rubella. Herpes vaccine, never got herpes. Hepatitis vaccine, never got hepatitis. Got the COVID vaccine, got COVID. what the fuck?
Yeah, me too. I had COVID twice.
Yeah, that's because that's what do they call it? It's like a different term for it. It's not a vaccine. It's a
Yeah, it became something else. It became some kind of double speak for we're still calling it a vaccine, but did you think it was going to prevent you from getting or spreading the disease? What are you, stupid?
there it is.
Oh Christ!
Blue Meanie says he suspects his brain is more solar system size. Well, catch up.
Yeah, man.
We got galaxy brains. Boom.
Who is
Almost.
Wacky Leans and why is he on the other side of the world?
I'm
I think
assuming that's
Wacky Lanes is
Sinatra.
Sinatra. He changed his name up.
Yeah, but apparently he's a Dream Theater fan, which suddenly
What's
a lot
wrong? What's wrong with Dream Theater?
just
Metal.
just nerds.
Are they, so is Dream Theater good? Because I actually had my friend that's really into metal was telling me the other day that
They're
I told him,
intensely
okay,
good.
I'm open to metal, and he's like, I think you would love Dream Theater, and I haven't listened to him yet, but
I
think they're more
I
brain.
struggle with
It's
like,
nerd metal.
yeah, like it is the musicality, the technicality, like it's
They're very good.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's like it's magnificently
It's prog metal.
technical, but to me it's basically unlistenable. It just sounds like
so it's kind of like Tool to me.
if Disney
Yeah,
had a metal band, it would be Dream Theater. Like,
would you guys like me to play Megadeth Holy Wars on the banjo for you?
Hey, how come I've been seeing so many guitars with banjo bodies on them?
is that banjitar?
Yeah, like I
think
no,
well,
I
I know
saw
that-
it. I was showing my kid all these instruments, and I looked at this. I was like, "Oh, that's a banjo." And then I looked at it, and I was like, "That looks like a guitar with just a banjo body." And we went to the piano gallery today, and we were looking at different stuff. And then I find one of them. It's got the same headstock as like an acoustic guitar, but it's got the body of a banjo. And I was like, "What the?" And sure enough, it's the same tuning. It's just a guitar with the body of a banjo.
It was literally so like because there's guitar players like, oh, we need a banjo tone for this song, but I don't know banjo. I only know guitar. So that's literally all there is to it. It's a guitar but with a banjo body. That's literally all it is.
Well, most guitar players, like when they play the banjo, they play it like guitar players, which I think the AID brothers really kind of do for as long as they've been playing guitar, banjo and stuff like that. They don't do like the 3 finger pick.
It's its own it's its very own technique.
That sort of thing. But you can do like a claw hammer. It does this like it's a claw hammer like that. Or then you have like the 3 finger.
Yeah, like I mean, because in jazz, like in old time jazz music, the banjo is part of the rhythm section. It's not the melody section. It's basically part of the rhythm section. And it's only like in fact, that's the way it was guitar for a long time. Like when you listen to all the early rock and roll guys, that they were trained in old time music. And so it was all that really plucky, twangy, strummy stuff. And it was guys like Eric Clapton who came along who's like, you can just hold on to the note and let it ring. And, like that's allowed. Because like in jazz music, like, if you listen to jazz music, the guitar is the rhythm section. The piano is considered part of the rhythm section. Like, yeah, in jazz, the melody is the horns and clarinet. Everything else in the band is rhythm section.
Yeah. We got the Church of Korihor, Exmo Joe in the chat down there making a Deliverance reference to banjo. It's the first time for everything. How you doing, man? Flip popped on your channel the other night. How did that go? I only watched like a little bit of it. You're talking about
I didn't get to see it.
the homelessness, and then Risto went on.
Yeah, but Risto accidentally dumped himself before he got to do his poking.
Oh.
He only did minimal poking. I wanted to see the real poking, but Kulch and Korihor wanted to talk about some Mormon dingbat.
Who?
Megiddo?
Megiddo, dude.
Megiddo?
What the fuck are you guys saying?
I thought it's Chief Megiddo or something like that. He got baptized, I think, in the Church of Christ, not in Mormonism. But he's kind of like a little bit of a what do they call that? The landers, the homelander type people, whatever, the ones who but it's for that other church. It's not for this Mormon church.
I found out apparently Korihor Joe is into the Christ mythicism thing, but he's getting it from Richard Carrier. So I'm trying to turn him on to Bob Price because I don't know. Richard Carrier is
Christ didn't exist.
Yeah. Because the thing about Richard Carrier is, because I just was listening to Bob Price today, and somebody asked him about Richard Carrier. It's just funny because, because Bob Price, he will say and over again about Richard Carrier, his scholarship is fantastic. He's really good at the scholarship thing, but the guy's just such a piece of shit.
Sounds like me talking about Brian Hales.
Yeah, because that's thing, because Richard.
But
Carrier,
what would he say back about Price? He'd say he's a piece of shit and his scholarship's bad because he's got the principle.
That's part of the thing, is because Richard Carrier is woke. That's the thing, is he was part of the Atheism Plus thing, and he was in the early days. He did the whole woke thing, and that's things it's all classically woke because he badmouths, slanders Bob Price as being sexist and racist and all the stuff that anybody who's critical of woke is automatically according to the woke. But also Richard Carrier got sued a whole bunch for sexual harassment shit because he was into polyamory and he was just hitting on women left and right.
What?
That
happens?
Isn't that shocking? Are you shocked?
How David Silverman got booted out of the atheist conventions and all that sort of stuff, always happens to polyamorous people at the top of their organizations. Careful, Church of Korihor.
Yeah, it only ever happened. But yeah, no, it's too bad though, because Carrier is a lot of fun to listen to on his scholarship stuff. But it's just unfortunate that his personal political life, he's just a fucking turd.
Well, me and Morgan have decided we're going to do the polyamory thing, except we're going to do it right.
You'll be the first.
It might work for us.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. I think maybe we're within the 2% of people that an open marriage can work out for. I think so. I think watching my wife bang other dudes isn't gonna bother me, not even a little bit, because it's called compersion. I don't know if you've heard of compersion, but it's the opposite.
No,
it's the opposite of jealousy. It's jealousy is the pang you get when you watch somebody that you love doing something with somebody that's not you. But compersion is the oof, that great feeling you get when you're like, man, my wife is really, really enjoying that cock right now. And I'm just so happy for her. So I think we're gonna do it right.
You're gonna win this time.
Yeah, no, we got it. And what do we have to lose? 3 kids and a house and a 11-year marriage.
That ain't that much, man.
Surely it's worth it for unsatisfying, creepy sex that comes back to bite you in the ass.
Smelly. It smells too. It'll smell.
No, it's not any of that. It's not about sex. It's just who I am inside. Okay. It's some people are born gay. I was one of the rare males that was born with the desire to just fuck a million different women.
What?
And yeah, no,
is that an identity? What's the identity of that?
Yeah, it's an identity. I'm polyamorous. Okay.
No, there's got to be a cooler identity.
Oh my God, I'm polyamorous. Stop.
No, it's got to be
I really thought that I could come here and be accepted for who I am. I really thought that.
Is there a multi-gal sexual? How do you make that Latin? I can make it Latin.
I don't know.
Wow, that's a weird compulsion you have there. Do you?
Yeah,
you sit there and navel gaze about your identity for having that strange identity of feeling sexual attraction to multiple women?
It is weird how unique I am, because I understand that most people you're sitting there with their wife and I don't know, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow comes on and he's just I wouldn't fuck her even if she was naked straddling me right now. I wouldn't even. But I would. That's the thing. I would actually want to do that. And so it's part of. Yeah, no, seriously, I would. And I know everybody's different. That's just my weird, unique sexuality.
Do you feel lonely because other people, you can't relate with other men? 'Cause
Yeah, no.
you've got
I-
this unique special thing that you figured out.
No, I tell my friends that all the time. I'm like, man, I wish I could just like fuck a harem of women, and they're all like, "Egad, I would never even desire any woman except for my lawfully wedded wife." And I'm like, yeah, it's just that's the way you were born. This is the way I was born. You know.
Have any of you guys actually looked at that book, The Ethical Slut, that everybody reads and then thinks they're gonna make it work? Because I know
Yeah.
so many people are like, well,
Esther Pilar.
well, I read The Ethical Slut, and I'm just wondering, because like I've never read it, but I'm just kind of wondering like what's actually in it.
I might have it on Audible. I don't know. I've got a lot of degenerate books that I.
Is it one of your degenerate book club books?
I think so.
No way! You got to do I still have the thing for degenerate book club here. I could even pull it up right now.
Well, I don't.
I feel like I'm always Joel in Arrested Development, waiting to do the chicken dance, and I'm late with it. Like, wait, hold on.
Wait, have you got the two screen setup? Have you figured it out?
Yes, I do. But getting to the, I still got to figure out now Google Slides, which is different than the typical slides that I normally use. But here, I'll share it. Oh, present, share screen. Here you go. See, there it is. Jared's Degenerate Book Report. He can give us an Esther Pilar book report there.
I wish I could. I haven't read it, honestly. Like, I think it's in. I think I have it on Audible. I just haven't started
summary.
it.
The Ethical Slut is groundbreaking.
So
there's nothing in the Bible about people screwing around. It's the first time that anybody's ever actually examined the phenomenon.
Did you guys get my terrible pixelated meme here at all, or do I need to explain the meme a little bit?
I explain it because I've seen that thing going around. I haven't bothered to look up what it is.
So those things are the differences between a conservative and a liberal or person's brain that lights up when it comes to who they empathize with or love, like their circle of friends and all that sorts of stuff. And as you were talking about, we joked about it in here before, but there's some sort of concept that they love a tree in India better than they love their dad. But those are the differences between like what lights up. And then I saw some critics of it talking about, no, you don't get it. It's just that the liberal ones got more love, and it loves all of them the same. It's all the same. We love them all. And the conservative ones just has a narrow little one and only loves like what's close to them. And as you can see, I'm a Church of Korihor trad nationalist. I'm going to call it a Kornat. I'm going to start like a whole thing on Twitter of the Kornats that, just kidding. But the whole entire thing ended up becoming this big, long fight that McClellan got mixed in with about something J.D. Vance said about ordered love. And we're talking about disordered love here tonight, as it also comes up in the homelessness problem. And maybe it's like one of those large differences in personality types between more conservative versus less conservative people, right? But you bring it up to me because there's this gal that I knew. I brought her up on here before, a friend of mine. She's actually a widow. Went back into the dating world, and every single guy she met, the guy would be like, just start using all sorts of therapy language on her. You know, that weaponized therapy language, the weaponized, like, I just feel like for me to be my authentic self, I have so much love to give, and my love is extra big, and my extra big lovey love means I need to bonk more women. And
I had a conversation with an AI therapist where I admitted to being incest sexual, where I'm born only being attracted to members of my family. And at first it was like, Jesus Christ, we need to get you some help. And then I was like, but I'm trying to be my authentic self, and I'm not sure what's wrong with two consenting adults, assuming we're both adults, you know?
And it was like AI just read all of Foucault and came back with
it was like, you know what? You're right. Who am I to come in between two
Who's to say?
A consenting brother?
Who's to say? What's to say? Speaking of which, I have that whole thing where I tried to get ChatGPT to tell me the truth about Foucault's curdled milk story. I want to get into that in a little bit here, but this whole deal it's so ridiculous. Like I felt so bad for that gal, and she'd go around and she said it happened to her multiple times. She'd start dating a guy, and then like a little bit into it, they'd start telling her, well, I just have extra super love. I saw some skits lately. I didn't save them. I should have saved them, of some people using that weaponized therapeutic language. You remember how it came up with Jonah Hill, that he supposedly was using weaponized therapeutic language on women to manipulate them. Like, I just have a bigger love circle, and to be my authentic self, I just really feel like I need to expand my circle of love and all that
Well,
stuff.
he was using boundary setting specifically,
Yeah.
because he was.
And I don't know if he was actually doing it or not, but he got accused of it.
Well, I mean, I saw his texts, and I remember thinking, well, these are somewhat reasonable, because he's like telling his girlfriend not to like post like thong pictures online and hang out with dudes and all this shit. I was like, that's kind of reasonable, I guess. But then you find out that like she was a bikini model and a surf instructor when he met her and started getting with her. So it's like getting with a porn star and asking her to stop doing porn, you know? Like, generally speaking, if your wife just out of the blue was like starting to do porn, and you were like, hey, sweetie, I think we need to set a boundary, and I would like for you to stop doing filmed bukkakis. Just please. I think that'd be reasonable. But like, if you married Mia Khalifa in the middle of her thing, and then you were like, you need to stop doing what you're doing, that's kind of on you. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Scorpion.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where this came up, and I guess like JD Vance gave like some little interview where he talked about ordered love, which is I guess the title of tonight's show, where I guess referring back to some sort of Aristotelian model, he talked about the order of love, which we usually talk about it in the Nassim Taleb construct, where he talks about, with my family, I am a communist. With my larger family, I'm a socialist. With my friends, I am a democratic socialist. Larger group, like as it goes out and out and out, he becomes more and more libertarian until it gets into the entire world, where he's a downright anarchist, like leave me alone type stuff. But that same sort of thing kind of like shows out here, supposedly in the different brain scans of the brain, the source data of the brain. And those are the scans of conservative love circles versus Democrat love circles, which supposedly shows the concept that they love a rock better than they love their family member. No, they claim it's that they love the rock as much as the family member. But Risto noticed that Carrie, on 1995 to 2015, Carrier was married to Jennifer, announced her divorce. Carrier revealed that he is polyamorous. In the last 2 years, the marriage had been an open relationship. Accurate?
Wow, they made it 2 years?
Wow.
So you see all that stuff like coming out about Neil Gaiman. We talked about Neil Gaiman like a little bit, that he had been doing the polyamorous with his au pairs. With I guess they needed an au pair. I don't know if it would have been an au pair if you're not like actually taking care of kids or something like that. What would you just call them? Just like a housemaid or something like that. And he had them licking their own poop, man, for real. Yeah. And
once you get into poop stuff, I'm like,
he came out full male feminist, as like always happens in that sort of thing. The surprise, you know.
Anytime somebody tells me the phrase like "don't yuck other people's yum," I'm always like, yeah, but like some people like shitting on each other's chests. I feel like I can't draw a line from here to the society that I'm positive will happen if we encourage chest shitters to keep doing their thing. But I have a pretty strong feeling that like maybe it's best for society if we just shame people who want to shit on each other.
Yeah.
like if your brother comes and tells you like, I got this weird thing, man, I just really want my wife to shit on my chest, you'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you need to focus and find new hobbies, and like, yeah, I don't know. Like that thing is like, I mean, like, have you ever heard about what goes on in the gay world? Like, I got a friend who's gay, and he talks about how once a month there's this party that he goes to. And like I can't remember what he called it, but I'm like, what's it like? He's like, imagine 70 men in a house having sex. I'm just like that must smell phenomenal, whatever that is. Like whatever is going on there, like wow. But like, okay, so like, they're all consenting adults, and they, they're real careful. Like this is the thing that's interesting about them is that
a breeding kink.
do you remember when
Wait, what? No, a breeding kink? Church of Korihor said most monogamists are really in a breeding kink. That's like saying that I have
It's ironic.
That's like saying I get a high off sniffing oxygen.
Yeah, like
this breeding.
I've got a consuming food kink.
Like that's the purpose of fucking.
But it was interesting though, because he did mention about how, because like remember when monkeypox was going around, and at the same time the news was telling us that it was homophobic to suggest that it was a gay thing. He was saying like, oh yeah, we canceled the 70 guys in the house fucking party because of the monkeypox thing. Like, so they were responsible. Like, all right, well, good for them.
There was a bunch of people who were like shaming them or yucking people's yums for telling them that they should cancel parties for that stuff. It was exactly like the BLM marches in the middle of COVID. Like, well, it's okay for them because activism. Ugh!
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying there's a purpose to. There's no purpose to biology. I'm not even saying there's like a higher God purpose to it. But like
biology.
In a sexually reproducing species, sex exists to reproduce. Like there's other nice benefits to it. Like it feels great and stuff like that. But like it's not a kink that like I'm like I would like to get married to a nice woman and have children with her. It's like evolutionary. That is just nihilism. Like, oh, well, it's all meaningless. Like, yeah, no, in 5 billion years, the Earth swallows the sun. But, I still want to enjoy my life. Like, that's the purpose. Try to maximize goodness. There you go. Like, I don't believe in magic. I don't believe in God. But I believe that hamburgers are nice. Yeah, I know people use birth control, but
why are they not?
You're treating breeding like it's some type of a paraphilia, and it's just not.
And here's the ironic thing:
if I want you to slap me in the face with steak and like humiliate me while I sit in the corner with a dick cage on, that's a paraphilia.
But like the unbelievable irony of the guy pointing out that there's no purpose to biology is the same guy who unironically started an atheist church. Like, okay, you're playing both sides of the coin there, buddy.
Sorry, you were going to Neil Gaiman.
Well, I'll go back to it, but I like this little meme. The atheist, when God still doesn't let him out of hell after 100,000 times explaining that eternal punishment is immoral according to 21st century Western humanism.
Yeah, that's gonna be me in hell. Oh God, like this is fucked up. You know that? And he's like, "What? I'm God. Fuck you."
I was just pointing out to Risto. Did you know Neil Gaiman is heavily influenced by Chesterton, and some people kind of think that he kind of ripped from Chesterton for a lot of his different ideas for fairy tales and all that.
Did Chesterton say anything about shitting on the fence?
I think he did. Don't shit on the fence of the au pair that's working for you and have her lick it up. You'll get Me Too'd right out of the world.
Does he say not to yuck anyone's yum who wants to like impale their own asshole on the posts of the fence? Because like, if I'm into that.
I think Chesterton said, if you have her lick her own poo or not, you'll get Me Too'd anyway, Neil. So might as well do it.
Go for it, man.
Can't lose.
So Neil had people. He actually had people lick their own shit.
Yes.
Jesus, I haven't looked into it at all. I've just seen headlines and stuff.
Like, I mean, how much influence do you have to have? Because, like, what are the chances that, like, I mean, when he's doing the interview, does he have like some kind of magic set of questions where he can suss out the girls that are willing to lick poo, or is he just they're that enthralled by him that they're like, okay.
They were fans and girls and all that stuff. And as always happens, I was raped multiple times on multiple occasions. I returned again and again and again to get raped. But There is that.
Never occurred to me to call the police because
There is that, but that is one of the things you have to worry about. You know, Peterson always kind of like goes back. Oh man, I said Peterson. That's a dumb guy, smart guy. Oh, so embarrassing. Peterson always goes back to the thing that like nobody has this sorted out yet, and that's one of the reasons why stuff kind of always returns back to enforced monogamy, because the people who claim to be the most open about it become the most psychotic accusers of anybody, and it just goes back to the same. But yeah, they said that he was having some girl lick her feces or something like that, and yes, she came back again and again and again. But the age difference is so bad because we have that new thing now called like post minor. You know what I mean? You can't just be like a underage minor anymore. You can be a post minor if they're a certain age of difference.
I was only 31 years old.
Because we totally have our Western morals sorted out. But maybe we'll get into a little bit later here about how Foucault said none of that should matter anyway. They should be able to be kids. They should be kids. It can be. It's fine if they're 5 years old. But Neil Gaiman, yeah. But it's a big problem with him because he used his discrepancy of power and privilege. That's the kicker, kids. Power and privilege. That's the kicker. Didn't you think of that? I don't think you thought of that. Let's see here. Do I got
some McData now?
I just really like this quote.
Heartache is.
How's that sound? Because I think it's not coming out of my. Is it coming through the?
Yeah, it echoes.
Yeah, it's roomy.
Ding! Hold on, 1 minute. Audio.
Matt Damon.
Output device into my. Okay, now how's this?
Is the fact that
That's good.
there are folks who ostensibly want to understand this as it was understood anciently, but conveniently it always seems to line up with what they want it to mean today.
Right.
Yeah,
Everything
you're right.
Conveniently lines up to Christianity becoming this liberal great religion where all the prophets were basically social justice warriors, and Jesus was basically like a hippie communist. He didn't hate gay people at all, and all the stuff about Paul and Romans about the gay stuff probably interpolated somewhere. Paul probably didn't actually say that. It just happens to line up that way. Makes you wonder. Maybe.
But conveniently, it always seems to line up with what they want it to mean today.
This is the point that I'm going to come back to on a lot of different occasions this video, because he's going to eat his own words here when he says
conveniently it always seems to line up with what they want it to mean today.
We have
Just
devoted
intuitively.
aggregate hours making this point, and that guy just in that 10-second
I know.
there you
That
go.
was amazing. I didn't realize this was a McClellan like shit take video. I really thought it was just his video. And so when he said that, I was like, oh, isn't that crazy? If it conveniently lined up with everything that you thought. Eh.
But remember, they're Foucauldians. That's the trick. That's the trick to the recipe. Let's see here. Should we watch his actual video on the ordered love and the bigotry of the ordered love from the?
Go for it. Because
Hooray!
I'm trying to think of my favorite Dan McClellan take, and one of them is probably the homosexuality take, which again, I'm not Christian, so I don't care about homosexuality at all. But to say that the Bible doesn't condemn homosexuality is insane. And the way that he says it is the funniest because it's basically just, well, the word that they were using is it condemns the butt fuck-e. The butt fucker is okay, but the butt fuck-e is in the womanly position and therefore condemned. I'm like, but wouldn't the butt fucker also kind of be condemned in that case because he's causing somebody to be a butt fucky and therefore sin terribly? Like,
Don't you know David Halperin said it, and that's an academic, and that's the end.
but if I'm a single guy and I meet up with a married woman and I bang her, like she cheated on her husband. I didn't cheat on anyone, but I'm still an asshole because like I still facilitated somebody's infidelity. So I'm not even saying that that's, I don't care if people are gay, but like That's such a stupid take. Like, God only cares about you if you're being penetrated. If you fuck dudes, it's fine. If you get fucked by dudes,
Well, I mean, that's all the stuff, everything that David Halpern did. He was a Foucauldian historian, and that right there should be an oxymoron for people because it just means you're a professional maker-upper of stuff by what's not there. But it's not technically said, so we could think that it was meant this way, that all throughout time, people thought sex was just a dominated versus dominator thing, and they didn't even notice any sort of sexuality or biology in there. That was just a construct they didn't even notice. Right. But
it's almost like the postmodernists figured out the third answer to any, like, because I feel like most people, when a topic is brought to them, they'll say one of two things. Most likely they'll say, I know exactly the answer to this thing. Sometimes they'll say, I don't know. I haven't looked into it. And then the postmodernists will be like, who's to say what the right answer is? Like, they figured out that weird little third way. But they only use it. They use it so selectively, though, because like McClellan uses it when it's like, oh, were Jonathan and like David was really sad when Jonathan died. Were they banging? And he's like, well, who's to say? You know, who really knows? But then when you say, should the church condemn abortion? And he's like, nope. This is a rigid interpretation.
I mean, he totally does it that way. But you don't understand why. You see, when things are exactly 50-50, he just slightly leans to the side of the oppressed. That's how he deals with his bias. Don't you know that? Oh, I thought that was me.
That was my phone.
Normally something like that happens. It is me.
School, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way.
All right, let's see it.
You love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country. And then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world.
So this is a Christian concept in the sense that Christian nationalists commonly use it as a rhetorical smokescreen for their bigotry. However, it is both inaccurate and insincere. It's inaccurate because
he can mind read also, but that's one of the things that you can do when you're a structuralist linguist. You get to mind read because you can say what people meant. You're the only person who can say what they meant. Derrida for everybody else.
Well, it's kind of like
structuralism for you.
If one of my buddies was like a serial cheater on his wife, and we're like watching an interview of a guy talking about how much he loves his wife, and the guy told me that dude's cheating on his wife, I'd be like, oh shit, he knows, because he knows the signs, because he's cheating on his wife. That's McClellan here. Like, when he's actually being insincere in the things that is. So I'm sure JD Vance is actually being very insincere, because like Dan McClellan, he would be able to recognize that.
Yeah, he's got it. Well, he's got the linguist, and when you're linguist, you can decipher all meaning.
It purports to be Augustine's Ordo Amoris, order of love, or St. Thomas Aquinas's order of charity, but it is neither. It is actually what both describe as the natural order that is supposed to be subordinated to the order of love or the order of charity. See, for both men, you're supposed to love God and love your neighbor. And within the category of neighbor, they don't distinguish hierarchies. You love everyone. Now, both men also recognize that there is a natural intuitive.
Even a rock, but not your dad. Not your dad. Your dad's an asshole. You should be able to divorce yourself from your parents. Actually, Brittany from No Nonsense Spirituality has been on about that this week.
Oh, God. So is he about to get to the point where he's like, actually, I mean, it makes sense for you to prefer your family over other people? Is he about to say that?
Totally. How did you guess?
Well, wait a second. Family has no meaning.
Pulse to prioritize proximity.
Family has no purpose.
No purpose.
And
no purpose
to love those you are closest to and that you are around the most. And they recognize and they acknowledge that. But they also subordinate that natural order to the order of love or the order of charity, which requires that you love everyone. And both of them talk about how if you love those closest to you to the exclusion, to the harm, to the marginalization of those
fuck
further
you.
away,
Harm and
then that natural order
marginalization.
is
Conveniently. It doesn't mean your current day politics. It means my current day politics.
disordered, and it violates the order of love and the order of charity. Both of them say that you cannot do that. Augustine wants you to love all so that all can come to love God. And he recognizes that you cannot equally distribute your love to everyone on earth. But he suggests that you hierarchize things according to the accident of proximity. So if we go into On Christian Doctrine, we see at the bottom of this page, all other men are to be loved equally. But since you cannot be of assistance to everyone, those especially are to be cared for who are most closely bound to you by place, time, or opportunity, as if by chance. Thus, suppose you had an abundance of something which it would be well to give to someone else who lacked it, but you could not give it to two. If two came to you of whom neither took precedence either in need or in any special connection with you, you could do nothing more just than to decide by lot which one should be given that which you could not give to both. Thus, in the same way among men, not all of whom you can care
Based
for,
on
you must consider
what?
as if selected by lot, each one as he is able to be more closely associated with you in time. So, in other words,
Okay, so can I
you don't-
sing something? I just wanted to
Yes.
sing something real quick. This goes out to Perseus. Proximities can be together forever in Jan McData's plan.
Church of Korihor. I know that you've been making hymns and stuff like that. This hymn stuff can be right there. That is a perfect hymn. He's taking off. Church of Exmo Joe. Proximities can be together. I mean, you got one right there. Free.
That's a good one
free.
there, Perseus. Nailed it.
He's going off to watch Dan right now, so he's gonna get edified by
Oh, he's off to. Yeah, he's gonna.
credentialisms. Yeah.
don't have these ideological categories that you put on people you don't know, and then you order your love based on those ideological categories. You love the people you come into contact with, whether undocumented immigrants or not. You do not love the native citizen in your town that you do not know more than the undocumented immigrant in your town that you do not know. That is disordered natural love, according to Augustine, and that results in sin and disharmony. Now, for Aquinas, the goal is not necessarily just so that love of God increases. Aquinas talks about the common good and social order, and again says that you should not disorder your natural affections. If love of someone close to you results in neglect for someone at a distance from you, then that love is disordered. So this is misrepresenting the ordo amoris, the order of charity. It is pretending to be that, but really what it's doing is inverting the natural order over and above the order of love and the order of charity in order to make it seem like they are authorized to neglect the person at a distance from them. But that brings up the other issue, that it is also insincere, because as J.D. Vance has demonstrated numerous times over in his political career, he is more than happy to neglect the people in his own community, because he, in accordance with right-wing authoritarian and social dominance orientation identity politics, opposes programs that support the poor and the vulnerable.
It's
and
almost
the
like
it's
it's almost like he understands a couple of things and then takes them to a weird extreme. Like, because if you, I don't know, if somebody came to me and they're like, okay, your kid has an iPad, but he could have a newer iPad. If you press this button, he'll get that newer iPad. But some weird Chinese kid that you'll never know, he'll just die immediately if you push the button. If I press the button, you would all very reasonably call me assholes. But if the button instead said, either this button, your kid dies, or this button, a stranger dies, which one do you press? I'm going to press the stranger button, and you guys are all going to be sympathetic, like, fuck, dude, I know you didn't like doing that, but I understand. like what calculation do you do in McData's plan here to know which button you press if it's kill your kid or kill a stranger?
How dare you? How dare you? It's you keep the Haitian, kill your kid.
No, I know that's the thing is like it's not even like he's saying this as a neutral. They never portray it as a neutral. It's a you should avoid your natural leanings, which are of proximity, and therefore go with the kid further away from you rather than the kid that is yours.
Well, I think it is disordered. Well, no.
It's disordered.
It's disorder. It's disordered love unless you give free healthcare to all nations, all the people of the world.
Whether that's because of socioeconomics, whether that's because of race, whether that's because of ideology, sexual identity, all those things. There are plenty of times where J.D. Vance has advocated for neglecting the people that are close to him because they don't support his ideologies, which is
What the fuck is he even talking about?
He's talking absolute bullshit. That's what he's talking.
Like, he hadn't heard of J.D. Vance until 3 months ago. Come on.
Well, he's going way off here. He's like into a different argument now.
Yeah, he turned it into basic bitch Bernie Sanders Democratic talking points, which I guess it all came out in that stuff with the RFK grillings that Bernie Sanders receives more money from pharma than any person. No, I do not receive it directly from the pharmaceutical companies. It's personal loans from the CEOs of the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, his fucking face when RFK said that was that's meme material right there, man.
And Elizabeth Warren's third of all of them. Those are your Democrat socialist heroes, folks.
Dude, Elizabeth Warren's question to him, that was hilarious. It's like she was if I knew nothing about Elizabeth Warren or RFK and I watched that exchange between them, I would be like, "Oh yeah, she's like totally on his side and she's giving him a softball to make him look really good." Because did you see what she asked him?
Several different things. Wait.
Okay, the last thing she asked him was, when you're done here, do you pledge not to take any money from drug companies or
not to sue them?
Yeah. No. This was a different one. She asked him if he would not be like a lobbyist for big pharma after he leaves his position. Like, will you not? And he goes, "Who, me?" And she's like, "Yeah." Yeah, look, I'm happy to pledge that I won't take money from big pharma, but I also don't think they want to give me any.
I guess I didn't understand it. This is the clip I saw here. Hold on. This is it. So I just must have been misremembering what she said there.
Holy shit.
Dan McCallion. I think there's a couple more minutes of that. Anyway.
Dan McCallion.
Disordered love, man. I mean, I like after I listened to that whole video, because if you listen to that entire video where he pulled up the thing of conveniently, that guy pulls up a lot of spots where it seems like he gets some stuff pretty wrong. Some of it's nitpicky, but Dan's that kind of nitpicker. You know what I mean? It's nitpicky on like how precise he is about definitions, because so much of his definitions come from within like the Hebrew and that sort of stuff, and he neglects some like older Greek definitions of things. And it sounds pretty much like the guy kind of caught him dead to rights on being wrong about quite a few different things. But it's nitpicky languagey stuff. This one here, what is it called? Gnostic Informant, hour and a half, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I listened to the whole thing. A lot of nitpicks, but you know, Dan's a nitpicker, and a lot of it's nitpicks about stuff that it sounds like he got wrong. I mean, I couldn't. Too much of it's kind of too much inside baseball for me to for sure tell. But it's the same thing when he starts going off on what Aquinas is talking about right there. And I've read Aquinas, but I don't remember the disordered love or ordered love thing and how Aquinas puts it. But I would highly question anything that Dan says, because he's so so prone to twisting everything into his modern day Democrat it's a ventriloquism for his modern day Democrat stuff, that I think that you almost cannot trust him at all.
Of both the Ordo Amoris as well as the Order of Charity. Vance is not suggesting we can't take care of others until we take care of our own, because Vance is not interested in taking care of our own. If he were, then we would have a much more robust social safety net. We would not be.
Would we?
That doesn't follow, Dan McCann.
Okay, but like even if it did follow, would we have a much more robust like 2 weeks into him being the vice president, we would have a much more robust. Okay.
Yeah, like he could have done that in like that amount of time. But also, JD Vance, one of the things that he talks about, if you go watch the Ron Howard movie about him and all that sorts of stuff, is he said that there were certain safety nets where things help, but he's also a big noticer that causes as many problems as it helps. Kind of like one of those things that Flip was talking to the Church of Korihor about with the homelessness problem, or the old story that they talk about where they started giving away money to a community to get rid of snakes. And they say, get rid of these snakes for us. We'll give you money for any snake hide you bring in. And then they started breeding snakes. That's the same story that happens in Blood Meridian. Like Blood Meridian, they say, hey, bring us the scalp of any sort of a Mexican or defector. And then pretty soon they're like, well, we get money for any scalp. And so the Gordon gang goes around and starts scalping anybody to bring him something. Like the incentives change things. And JD Vance, like one of the huge things about his Hillbill elegy thing is noticing that you can't just give people stuff and it cures the world. Dan McCallion.
Amerdo made a good point.
Minoritizing and
Amerdo made a good point. It was with what money, Dan?
There might be some more now when we get into the care of U.S. aid. Oh, so much care went all around the world in U.S. aid. We just cared for everybody with all of our dollars.
Groups based on sexual orientation or sexual identity or things like that, we would actually be taking care of our own. But right-wing authoritarianism is not particularly adept at doing that. What they are
Oh, you're so juicy angry, Dan McCann. Oh.
Adept at is rhetorical prophylaxis for their bigotry.
Oh, he said the prophylaxis.
He said
Has anybody
drink?
Has anybody directly asked Dan McClown the question, is there any such thing as left-wing authoritarianism? Has anybody posed that to him?
He'd probably cite Adorno to them, saying, Adorno said there was a significant studies back in the somethings, and they said there's no such thing as left-wing authoritarianism.
He'd probably block you. I didn't say
that. Yeah, that comes around to the U.S. aid money. U.S. aid, the most Orwellian name in history. So I've been following, I don't know if anybody else has been, but I've been following Mike Benz since he kind of became popular on the scene, maybe for like a year now. And I think I heard somebody say today that Mike Benz is like all the dry reading that you could have done already about the way this U.S. aid money gets blown and wasted and turned into color revolutions.
The U.S. aid money is hilariously fucked up to me because, like, how much of a dick do you have to be like, okay, you're put in charge of sending this money to like Chile or whatever, and you're like, okay, here, Chileans, I'm gonna give this to your church, but you got to teach Judith Butler.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? No, that goes against our beliefs. Like, well, do you want the fucking money or not? Like, they're like, I guess I'll teach our kids that gender's not real.
Yeah.
What was that tweet when the Taliban tweeted back to Hillary Clinton? Remember that? It was basically something along those lines, where like they basically just fat out called her. I was like, yeah, you tried to teach our daughters they could be boys.
Yeah. One of the purposes for that, though, as Mike Benz will state, is this stuff is weirdly somewhere between the woke and the blob. And what he means by the blob is so much of the stuff is knowingly used by the CIA to disrupt nations and to cause color revolutions. I've been talking. I bet you I could even go show you in in a live stream that I was the person who told Dave Smith about the term color revolutions. I dead seriously am. He was asking like, what's the term for like the one that we go and just jack with other people's countries and stuff like that and change their elections and stuff like that. The term is color revolutions. And magically, since that time frame, the really good long list of color revolutions on Wikipedia has been eliminated. Kind of just like a kind of just
No
like
way.
do you remember when they eliminated the Frankfurt School stuff or something like that?
Yeah, no, they changed cultural Marxism.
Yeah.
Like it used to just be an article about cultural Marxism, and then they changed it to a far right anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But like they didn't do a good job because you'd like click on stuff and it would take you to like Marcuse and Gramsci, and it was like they hadn't fixed that stuff yet. And
Yeah.
like
color revolutions, man. This is not a thorough list. It used to be like a way thorough list. There used to be like everything, and they've altered it around a little bit because they wanted to make it sound like it was only the times that we were fighting against Soviet states or something like that. But and it was like a bunch of different times. But they have this stuff. They're called color revolutions because you have the Tulip Revolution, the Velvet Revolution, the Orange Revolution, Bulldozer Revolution. There's a couple different ones, even the Arab Spring. And one of the things that they talk about that they do with it, but I think this stuff goes all the way back to like the Contra stuff in Central America in the 80s and all that sorts of deal. But the way that we would go in, we would have what they have is like, I think they just got defunded a bunch of these journalists within that USAID thing, but what they called them was something like Journalists Without Borders or something like that. Hope Without Borders, some sort of, every single thing has an Orwellian name to it. No, it says aid. No, it says help. Oh my gosh, what? And
Same things they always do with bills. You know, like anytime they're trying to pass a bill, they're like, 60% of Democrats are against the Don't Rape Children bill. And like, okay, yeah, but if we look at the Don't Rape Children bill, it also includes a ban on all gay marriage and like perpetual aid for Israel in the number of $500 billion or some shit like that.
It also has like a clear marked out spot for people who can rape children.
Yeah, so here are the exceptions to raping children.
I'm so glad you mentioned so many of these things, but it's sort of lit up a pinball machine in my mind of what area of that to attack. I guess, starting at the beginning, this, I don't know what's animating Elon in terms of, which aspect of the USAID octopus is most horrifying to him, and that may have tipped the camel's back, so to speak, around, just shutting down the agency entirely. But to me, while I am wokeness is a real thing, and it's very real, and you know it when you see it. I have been saying for a very, very long time that what you see, it's very easy to mistake wokeness with blobness if you're not looking with a careful lens. And what I mean by that, I'll give a great example. So a few months ago, Max Blumenthal's outlet, the Gray Zone, published the internal leaked files from the International Republican Institute, which is the Republican arm of the National Down for Democracy. So it's NED. And the State Department was displeased with the results of the Bangladesh election in 2018. The State Department favored candidate got walloped. And NED, through the IRI, submitted a baseline assessment to the State Department of the best way to win the next election. And they decided that would not be possible without destabilizing Bangladesh and Bangladeshi culture and society in order to do the classic street riot, color revolution type work that NED has been doing now for 4 decades. But in the baseline assessment, again, this is the Republican wing of NED. Their baseline assessment said that basically the only groups, we lost the election overwhelmingly. The groups who are most upset at the current in-power government that we could capacity build with state and USAID funding are LGBT groups, 2 racial minority groups in Bangladesh, and young people and student groups in Bangladesh who like to listen to rap music. And so IRI poured State Department, U.S. taxpayer funds into transgender dance festivals, into a whole slew of sort of woke identity events around minority rights and funding minority rappers in Bangladesh. Ultimately culminating in throngs of street protests that forced the democratically elected prime minister to flee the country in a helicopter as a Clinton Global Initiative fellow was named the new president, and they canceled elections. So all of this is to say that I don't think that the Republicans at IRI are woke. I think that you have tactical wokeness in service of statecraft. And this is what's motivating. Just today, you had.
That's, I think, one of the larger problems with it, because some of it is like woke, and there's been this long argument between Aaron McIntyre and Academic Agent, and if they'll put the woke away or not. But I think one of the things people don't understand, and Scott Adams has been on about this all this week, and it's something that I've mentioned on here before, but we basically had this color revolution thing that they did on other countries 1,000 times over. They've done it so many times.
Well, didn't we have that big video of us teaching third wave feminism to Iraqi women?
Yeah.
Like showing them postmodern art of like the urinal
Mhm.
and shit like that. And they're like, what the fuck is going on?
And there's so much of it. They were like, are these guys true believers? And people used to tell me, I don't even know what you mean by neoliberalism. Like, neoliberalism is that you must bring the liberalism to the world, like as if you were a missionary, and force it upon other people and bring it into their societies like this. But what the sinister side of it is that the CIA knew and always knew how to disrupt elections through this stuff, putting out and funding street violence. This stuff goes all the way back to, as James Lindsay's talked about forever, the lumpenariat, and like putting to use all of the degenerates in society because you can make them create street scenes and all that sort of stuff. And that stuff's had funding behind it, but they are able to use the strategic wokeness to disrupt elections, to disrupt countries. And they did this so many times over to so many different countries. Do you think at any point in time they might have turned it internally against us a little bit and said, hey, these techniques work everywhere else in the world. Maybe we could try pulling them off here too a little bit. And one of the things that these things do is like they fund money into NGOs. The NGOs have all these fake programs, but those programs are really not just because they want the kids to be gay. It's because they're trying to disrupt something. They're trying to irritate. They're trying to bother. They're trying to jack. But then so often the money that supposedly they're sending off to give aid to some African kid, there's no African kid getting any money. That's not happening anywhere. Just like when we send money to Gaza and we send it to Gaza, so it's just going right to Hamas. And that sort of stuff is just ridiculous. Like the way you get like fooled into sending your money off into this stuff. But then what happens with it too is that there's kickbacks. So it's like this great big laundering machine that they're finding out that they send the money to the NGOs, but then those NGOs also send half the money back to the Democratic Party. That, and they just are able to take tax dollars to continue to fund what Mike Benz here calls the blob. And if you go back and listen to him and listen to the dry, boring stuff that he's been talking about for 2 years, because everything that Elon in the news is dropping right now is kind of like hot tamales and all that sorts of stuff. But this guy's been talking about how they do all this stuff for foreign influence, and then they turn that influence inward just in the last several years for their purposes. And all it's ever been is just the psyop side of the military industrial complex. And so much money's been dumped into it and then laundered back into this. USAID was giving money to Soros. And somehow you've got the entirety of the left freaking out about this, saying that Elon is doing a coup and nobody elected Elon. Well, this was all tax money going to Soros, and Soros is open the foundation stuff. Nobody voted for Soros either. Like,
no, it's everybody's against billionaires once the billionaires are kind of right wing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
There's an article in BBC today about it's licking Bill Gates' butthole about how he's going to save the world.
Yeah. No. Well, and there was that. It's the who was it? Wasn't it Ocasio-Cortez who was talking about how this isn't about left or right? This is billionaires versus the rest of us. And I'm like, okay, but which billionaires, you dumbass?
There's more billionaires.
I haven't ever heard you shit on Bill Gates or George Soros. You might have shat on Jeff Bezos when he said the most reasonable thing he's ever said, which is maybe the Washington Post shouldn't endorse a political candidate. But like you're not against billionaires. You're just against right-wing billionaires. Because if I were to tell you I also hate all billionaires and I'm far right, I'd still be on the wrong team. Like, you'd still tell me I'm wrong. So don't fucking pretend, you dumbass.
Yeah, the billionaire stuff is just, it's ridiculous. And then they get like so much money from those billionaire things. But I swear, if you have all those guys, so Cultural Hall changed his name this week. And a couple different times he had to do a couple different streams because he had an emergency the first night. But he repeated on both of them that what made him deconstruct his entire religion was the during COVID and tough times in COVID, he was already a Trump supporter. And then the inject bleach thing completely changed his mind.
Yeah, he's got to be lying about that. There's no fucking way. Like, if you're a Trumper, you look that up right away. Even if you're not a Trumper, if you're a middle of the road guy, even if you're just a reasonable lefty, you're going to be like, okay, I know everything that you say about Trump is bullshit. So fuck you. I got to do my homework again. Let me pull this up. Oh, yeah, he didn't say inject bleach. Okay.
Yeah.
He was referring to a legitimate medical procedure that is maybe a thing that could have helped with this, and he explained it clumsily, just like when he said that California should rake the forests, and we all made fun of him for that, and now LA is burned to the ground.
Thing is, I know minimal things about forestry, but I learned a long time ago about clearing up underbrush. And so when he talks about raking the forest, like, what am I going to pretend like I have no possible idea what he could possibly mean by that? Like, it's such.
I know that was
bullshit.
even Anna Kasparian pointed that out now. Like, I hate how often I agree with her on things now because
She got mugged, and it really just.
I know it
woke
fucked
her
with
up.
her. But she talked about that, and she said basically what I just said, which was like, people like Trump talked about this before, and people made fun of him. And I remember them making fun of him when he said they need to like get in there and rake the forest, get all that debris out of there. And then they laughed at him because that's a weird way to word it, because that's not the proper like nomenclature that the actual profession would use or whatever. But it makes sense. Like, you know what he means. And he was fucking right. Your entire city burned to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's real frustrating, but at the same time, like with this story, this is another one that, like so many of the other stories, I had debunked within minutes when people started saying it, because I went and listened to the press conference, and the whole entire thing is like, he didn't say go inject bleach. You know, he didn't once. The person before him was talking about that they noticed that the bug can get killed through things like UV lights, different lights, and different things in different types of bleaches. That was the whole presentation by the person that Fauci brought in to talk about, some expert with some scientific studies that they were doing. And so then Trump asked, like, is there some way that you guys are figuring out a way to have this, like, put the UV lights on the body, or figure out a way to get some sort of injection that could do the same thing? That's what he asked. It was completely reasonable a question for the context of what the whole entire thing was. And he did not say inject bleach. He said inject some sort of disinfectant. But I think it's just,
bleach is a disinfectant, right? Bleach is a disinfectant. You can't tell me it isn't. I heard it with my own ears.
And he asked, like, was this really interesting and hopeful stuff, and you guys are working on it, and I know that you're working on like what you could possibly do with this. It's just so obviously not what was going down. But I feel like using that for your reason for deconstructing the church is kind of like, well, I thought the church was true, and then I found out about QAnon, and like QAnon made me start to really question and deconstruct everything. QAnon is where I was like, whoa, and man, but
no, I get it, because I was a huge Green Lantern fan. You know, the comic book Green Lantern. I read all the issues and stuff like that until one of my buddies that was also a Green Lantern fan also came out as a pedophile and went to jail for it. So now I no longer like Green Lantern because of that. But also, it was fake, and he was proved to not actually be a pedophile, and he's totally clear to that now. But I still don't like Green Lantern.
All right. Yeah, but all of this U.S. aid stuff, all of this stuff that's like going down, like what Trump and those guys are doing, I do not see how anybody. I could see how like maybe you'd be afraid they're going too far with stuff or something like that. But auditing how badly money's been wasted, I don't get how anybody's not on board with that. Like, you're only not on board with it because you're getting told, like, as we say, the people who get their opinions from the media. Like, you are giving us a CNN opinion if you think it's a bad idea to audit how terribly this money has been sent, calling it aid. Like, come on. And then buying into the thing of saying, oh, well, geez, it was just aid for poor Africans or something like that. And like, once again, you guys tell us you're the deconstructing kings.
This was just a
You deconstruct things like you're king deconstructors.
This was a contingency plan. They were like, all this money is actually going to fuel our hooker and cocaine parties and shit like that. But how about, on the off chance some insane asshole gets in here who's actually going to audit us? How about we just name it something like really nice so that he looks like the asshole? Yeah, let's name our sex party the African Anti-Child Beating Fund, and so
the No Rape Round Here Club.
Yeah,
No Child Rape Round
Trump
Here
is
Club.
defunding the No Rape Club. Does he love rape?
I guess he loves the rape because he's funding the Save the Children No Rape Fund that only gives a carve out for some rape. That brought up a clip that I like. Let me see if I find it real quick. Oh man.
You got really good stuff because I got to be lame and go to work early tomorrow.
I have great stuff. I have
you
stuff
always
that
have
you
great
can't miss. If it gets missed, you will wake up and say, "Oh,
the missing."
I missed it." No, I mean we don't have to keep talking about the USA stuff. The rest of it is, there's John Delaney stuff. There's not that very good of stuff, but then this one.
Bill Cosby, you ever get to meet him or not? Before he had all the problems. Is being a rapist one of the problems?
Oh my God.
I thought that was a pretty normie response.
Oh, that's good.
Reese was right. Cosby was a comic genius.
The best storyteller. I remember him talking about Spanish Fly when I was young. Like, I have recollection of that album of him. Spanish Fly was we even kind of believed there was such a thing as Spanish Fly out there when I was a kid. Like, there's some sort of pill you give women and then they just want to have sex with you. Like, he dead seriously would talk about Spanish Fly from that. And I know we as kids talked about the rumored Spanish Fly because of Bill Cosby. And I remember there's like one little piece in one of the Cosby shows where he gives a barbecue sauce to women and it makes them horny. Like, that's a little bit too close, Cosby.
He was being cocky.
Anyway, the USAID stuff, I mean, we could go forever on that, and I guess we shouldn't because everybody's following it everywhere. But ex-Mormons, once again, stop telling me you're deconstructors when you want to keep the constructors of complete bullshit rolling and going everywhere. Show me you can actually deconstruct a thing. Show me that you can notice when people are lying to your face about something that's good and for the kids. Show me. You brag that you have this ability. You brag that you have it. And I just don't think you do. Jen Camp.
Oh boy.
Jen Camp's had her things settled out.
I'm gonna miss the Jen Camp saga. I hope she pops back up again.
No.
I'm sure Dylan isn't missing it, and this is an instance where I actually feel terribly bad for John Dylan. Like I don't have a lot of sympathy for him, and a lot of and the sympathy
You
here is
still feel bad for him now that.
well, the sympathy here is still limited because it's like, how the fuck did you not immediately peg her as borderline? Like, I
Yeah.
bet she sobbed when, I don't know, talking about the childhood trauma of not being able to go to a stake dance because the car broke down or something like that. Like, I bet she sobbed about that in front of you the first time you met her. You should have known. But, like, also, I don't know. That's even a poor decision drawn out of 2 years of litigation and bullshit. I do feel bad for the guy, but that was a stupid move, Dylan.
I mean, because I don't know. On top of everything else, like you hired somebody to be the executive director of your organization who had no relevant experience or training.
Well, and showed no like initial talent either.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I really think like it was just she probably came in and was like, oh, I'm a feminist. He's like, oh, okay, better hire you because that's what I do. I'm the guy who's totally pro women.
Maybe she was unstable enough, and he saw that right away through his therapeutic training that he's like,
Maybe, I don't know.
she'd probably bang me.
Well, that's her claim, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really.
It is, but like, I don't know. I actually believe RFM in this instance when he
DEI hire.
RFM kind of shuts that down, and it's like there's the video where Jen Kemp claimed that she was sexually harassed by John Dylan. She didn't have the video, and she said she deleted it. But then Dylan, I guess, actually found the video because they just had it on the office security camera, and they have the full audio and everything. And RFM has watched it, and they won't let him have it. But he can kind of report on it. So what he says is that it was basically the opposite. It was Jen Kemp not being sexually harassing to him, but like basically yelling at him, telling him that like you're having me actually come to work to get money.
Give you my job.
and that all sounds very believable to me. Like, so I don't know. Dylan, I could see doing some skeevy sex things behind. I don't think he would. I don't know. I don't think he would sexually harass anyone though.
Glenn brought them on to do this.
Change the Doctrine and Covenants.
Yes.
Well, there's a really easy answer to the temporary and non-restorative teachings of plural marriage found in D&C 132. What's the answer, Sandra?
I've lost where you're going.
Change it.
That's not the first time that's happened with Sandra.
It happens so many times in there. She does like he keeps trying to have her say something.
she's like Clint Eastwood, like, what the fuck do you want me to say?
She doesn't. Do you remember being in like primary when you're young and you had some sort of teacher and you'd all read like the verses and you had no idea what you're supposed to get out of the verse and they'd be like, "What was it, Chris? Baptism? No, it was it was marriage by it was just some totally different other thing, and it just like went like that the whole entire thing. Like, what was it, guys? Say it together. Immersion of sin. And we're like, we're not following you, dude.
No, that's you say in primary, but like I get that every week because I work for the goddamn government.
Oh, and they still talk to you like that.
Yeah, I mean they always ask us they ask us questions that if I were to answer them, they would be insulting. Like seriously, at our training, the lady was like, "Would you guys rather work in a workspace that makes you like really sad or a workspace that like makes you really happy?" And I was just saying like, I'm not fucking answering this because I would be stupid. Like if I answer this, people are going to be like, he's fucking retarded because he answered the dumbest question in the world. And I got that a couple weeks ago. That's my name right now is Crocodile Light. And it's because like 2 weeks ago, I had a week-long asbestos training where this dude was teaching us about asbestos mitigation because we're taking down prototype submarines from the 60s. And there's a lot of asbestos in there. So we have to use all these controls to take them down. And this dude, like, it's this government mandated training. And it's really stupid. And he clearly, like, it was his first class he'd ever taught, and he had no fucking clue what he was talking about. He was probably like the brother-in-law of the guy who owns the company that subcontracts this class to the government or whatever. And he told us about different strains of asbestos, and one of the strains of asbestos is called chrysitolite, and he kept pronouncing it crocodile light, and it was one of the funniest things to watch, because he told us crocodile light, and part of why asbestos is used and everything is because they said it was inflammable and unquenchable. And he told us that, like, he talked about how if you're going to be dealing with high levels of asbestos, you got to wear the proper PP and E. It was wonderful.
You know, Risto sent me this and reminded me of it. Did you guys watch this whole entire thing? This is some of the best stuff ever. We needed to play this to Dan McClellan, but it's this whole thing of these different memes of kind of like woke Christians, but it's all set to music. It's like woke Christian quotes. It's so good.
You should let in more refugees because Jesus said to be compassionate in the Bible somewhere.
These all, like, Church of Korihor is looking for hymns. Like, these could all work for Church of Korihor. You guys want to...
Oh, that's why you didn't want him to go.
Somewhere.
I want to submit. He said you could submit hymns into them. We should submit everyone he's in as like a hymn for the Church of Korihor.
No, I'm not a Christian, and I'm nothing but contempt for your backwards religious beliefs. Nothing but contempt. So yeah, this argument wouldn't work on me, but maybe if I use it on you. You'll do what I want, you'll do what I want, no, do what I want. No, I know I'm not a Christian, and I'm nothing but contempt for your backwards religious beliefs. Nothing but contempt.
I think my favorite Lefty Jesus quote was just, Lefty Jesus, go forth and keep on sinning.
John DeLynn and the amount of damages that Gen Camp owes to Open Stories Foundation. And it's sizable. I'll tell you right now, I'll look at the documents here in a second, but John DeLynn is around 400,000. It's a little north of that, I believe. And Open Stories Foundation is around 700,000.
So John DeLynn.
Defamation damages agreed to by Gen Camp as fair and reasonable is over $1 million. I think it's about 1,100,000, and I'll have the numbers here in a second.
That was a poor little girl. Just give her some mercy, please.
Really, 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 really worth it. Really, really worth it.
I was going to say, though, about feminization of the workplace. I was also thinking about, because like everywhere I've worked, because women run all the offices, seasonal decorations. Like, what the fuck?
Why do we have to do seasonal decorations?
Like, why do we have seasonal decorations? Like, you ever been to your mechanic and they've got like, heart? It's February, so they put hearts on everything. Yeah, because there's no women there, and it's a workspace. And why are you gonna waste time putting up fucking decorations?
I just thought it'd be nice and pretty when somebody brings in their Corolla, and he wants to get his alternator changed out. He wants to does he want to look at this drab wall, or does he want to look at a nice Christmas tree while he's doing it?
Gotta decorate. Yeah, fascinating.
Amelia Perez. Amelia Perez. No, I mean, we haven't really covered much Amelia Perez on here. I don't know that we even mentioned that Amelia Perez was nominated for an Academy Award. But one of the areas I think is more interesting about this is like a bunch of stuff's coming out that everything's been AI changed. Like Adrian Brody was up for Best Actor, and now a bunch of people have it in question because he used AI to make his accent better. And It turns out they used AI on all the voices in Amelia Perez too. And
Really? And it
yeah.
sounds worse.
It sounds as bad as it does.
Because it's gotta. Did it sound worse before or after the AI? Do you think?
Probably before, because they needed it. They needed the person to sound like a female, and you know, I guess half the movie, the Amelia Perez person is a male, and the other half, the Amelia Perez, is a female. But there's a song in it that, like, dead seriously talks about the point of the whole show. Look here, I'll show it to you right here.
To suffocate her if she doesn't find a doctor for him to transition with. And then in the next scene, the next fucking scene after he has almost murdered her in her own home, she is defending him as someone who is changing his soul. She says, changing the body changes the soul, changing the soul changes society. Therefore, once he goes through his transition, he's no longer morally culpable. There's no longer any accountability for his crimes against humanity.
Jesus, so they're not even...
That is the depraved, twisted...
Yeah, and I have that scene somewhere too, where she's like,
so they're not even good at conveying the message they think they're conveying.
Yeah, they're like saying, well, I mean, it gets in line with that stuff. Like we constantly say to them that that it is like a metaphysical, theological belief thing, and they obviously are pushing in that movie that if you change that, you've changed your soul entirely and can't even be held for the same crimes anymore.
Sure, but that's like even. Like he did it like right before that. That's like if I'm trying to make a movie where the main message is that you can reform rapists, and then like he rapes a woman in one scene, and while he's raping her, he tells her, "I can change. Go talk to the doctor that'll change me." And she's like, "Yeah, he can change."
Yeah. Dang, I thought I had here the scene, but I mean, she just basically sings that it changes the bottom, changes the soul, changes society, all the stuff people are saying like has been part of the trans religiosity. And no, it wasn't. Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. I can't find it though. I think I found it. Oh no, this is some of the AI stuff. I'll put this on while we're looking.
Two most obnoxious Oscar-contending movies of the year just dealt themselves a serious blow, and it all centers around their usage of AI. Let's start with the movie I already had a long list of problems with, and that is The Brutalist. Beautiful thing here is Adrian Brody is not going to win Best Actor, thank fucking God. Said over and over again, every other single man in that category deserves the award more. I think most likely now it'll go to Timothée Chalamet. My pick would be Daniel Craig, but I'm happy to see Timmy.
Oh, I'm not going to watch like the whole thing, but another thing they get into is like there's this other one that has a person who generates art, like these artistic places, and the art that the person generated in the movie was also AI generated. So they think that's like a big, they've got all sorts of AI problems happening at the Oscars. That's a different one.
A tener hijos, no tengo tiempo para hacerlos y la bola de víboras me dice, ¿cuándo vas a abrir tu despacho, bonita? ¿Quién sabe cuando ya no se aprieta? ¿Por qué me llamó? ¿Por qué yo? ¿Por qué en el puesto de periódicos? ¿Por qué me llamó?
I just let that one play because Jiminy Criminal. But
did they even try? Like Zoe Saldana is not a bad actress.
No.
Surgery. It better change.
This is the song.
Doctor, I know you did a lot of studies. Doctor, but let me say I disagree. Changing the body changes society. Changing society changes the soul. Changing the soul changes society. Changing society changes it all.
Did James Lindsay write their script?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of fits all in the stuff that he says, doesn't it? But nope, you're crazy if you ever noticed. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, where's the Sears stoner? He's disappeared. He's not going to ever see that Amelia Perez
repeats James Lindsayism.
Well, yeah, but only for us.
Well, no, because
because
James Lindsay created the whole phenomenon.
Yeah,
And there we go. There's a whole movie that's going to win an Oscar now because
fuck
of
you, James Lindsay. Fuck you, James Lindsay. Fuck.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, it comes out a little bit later that the main actress, the first ever male actress nominated in the actress category, had some base tweets several years ago, and is now getting completely canceled out of the stuff for having had those based tweets. Let me see if we can find them here. But some of them said like BLM. I mean, this the Oscars just look like the BLM awards. What the hell is this? One of the things that they said.
He had some pretty good tweets.
Yeah, they were not bad. Man, I was just looking some stuff up on the Chat GPT, and it keeps lying to me about stuff Foucault said. But where are those tweets? I should have. I forgot about this stuff. I got to share it when I'm passing it. Or Jared had this.
Oh yeah.
Where's the volume?
Like retirement, I do have. It's exciting. And
okay. having a home.
Well, yeah. What about like retirement?
I do have a 401k.
How much is in there? Because I don't have it.
32,000.
Okay, well that's good.
It's about to get split in half.
Oh, you're going through a divorce, aren't you?
It just finished last week.
Oh, okay.
And it's gnarly. My legal fees are in the low 20,000s. The divorce went on for a year and a half.
Wait, why was it so divisive?
So I'm transgender, and my ex-wife.
What?
Yeah. my ex-wife.
I love watching that dude. He's like, he's a flamboyant, like metrosexual Dave Ramsey, who is as dickish as we are.
Man. All right, one more meme and I got to bail because I always stay too long.
All right,
I got early work.
Gascon previously posted, sorry, is it just me or are there more Muslims in Spain? Every time I pick up my daughter from school, there are more women with their hair covered and their skirts down to their heels. Next year, instead of English, we'll have to teach Arabic. And they're saying that he's basically going to be like removed from the Oscar contention, not for being male, for having bad thought. More and more, the Oscars are looking like a ceremony for independent and protest films. I didn't know if I was watching an Afro-Korean festival, a Black Lives Matter demonstration, or the 8M. Apart from that, ugly gala.
Wow.
But the movie also made the point that this was written when he was a bad person, and he's gone through changing the body, which changes the soul. Changes the body, changes society. Changes society, changes the soul. Changing the soul changes everything.
Yeah, so when I come out as like either transgender or a person who like has a fetish towards trans women, you'll know that that's all true.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that very few people ever cared about George Floyd, a drug addict swindler, but his death was served to once again demonstrate that there are people who still consider Black people to be without rights and consider policemen to be assassins. So it's like went to the Blacks without rights, but policemen to be assassins. It's but won't get the Oscar now because of this. No Oscar for Yo. You're out of contention. But that's that, man. You gotta take off, Flip. Do you have like any booze story or anything to say that I could use while I run to the restroom? Any Flip's booze corner or nothing happening?
No. Well, there's the recently the DABS got a wine in. That's an Italian Primitivo from Puglia. It's only $15 and it's fucking phenomenal. It is so good. Like if I was working at the wine store,
every single time you say no, and then you have like exactly real.
But yeah, no, like if you're looking for like really good Zinfandel, Primitivo Zinfandel, it's the same thing. Zinfandel in America, Primitivo in Italy. But yeah, like every once in a while, these wines come in that like they're just they're reasonably priced and just super duper good. It's the one that's $15.06. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it. No, what's it called? Maso Antico. I'll say it. And it's made from partially dried grapes. It kind of gives a little more intensity. But despite being Italian, it's really fruity. Because, normally the Italian wines tend to be a little more earthy and tannic. But it's just perfect all arounder. And for $15, it's ridiculous. It's like I almost never do a wine back to back. But like it came in, it was new and it was inexpensive. I'm like, oh, I'll try it. And then, like, the next time I went in, I just got it again because it was that good. But what time? It's not barbecue season yet. But even so, if you're having steak, barbecue, Zinfandel works great. And that's the one to get. But I think it's only at the wine stores. It's probably not at the regular liquor stores because it sucks. But, man, I'm sad. The wine store is such a shit show now. But I get schadenfreude out of it because every time I go in there, it's a shit show. And the employees are all miserable because it's being run by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
but it all worked out for me because like I miss talking about wine all the time. I miss my customers. I miss being really good at my job. But I'm doing better than ever in my work life now that I'm not working for those dickheads. And that's things like, and I keep getting recognized all over. It's like, oh, it's you from the wine store. Do you have like? They ask me for recommendations because they can't get anyone. They go in there now. There ain't nobody in there that can tell them anything.
Hey, you know how I said that there's no barring shit with terrible syrupy flavoring in it, there's no bad vodka. I proved myself wrong the other day. There was one on the bottom shelf that was $1 cheaper than the shitty plastic bottle that I usually get, and I think it was called Potter's.
Oh,
and Lord, it was terrible.
Even you noticed the badness.
Yeah, well, it's even in vodka. I noticed the badness.
Yeah, no, like really cheap. Like I always say, my rule of vodka is don't buy cheap vodka and don't buy expensive vodka. Buy the middle shelf vodka that's on sale. That's the best vodka.
Well, when we went to Utah, I bought some bottom shelf vodka, and it was cheaper than the vodka that we have in our store. I was like, oh, cool. It's all terrible, shitty vodka, but like it was undrinkable because it had some terrible fucking syrup in it, and I didn't notice from the color.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Flavored vodka. I don't. That's things like I've never understood flavored vodka because it's like it's like, oh, I like lemon and I like vodka. Buy a fucking lemon and squeeze it into your vodka. Or it's like, oh, I like fruit punch and I like vodka. Buy fruit punch and put some vodka in it. But like all these flavored vodkas, like vanilla vodka. Just put some vanilla flavoring in your vodka. You just made vanilla vodka. But people, like, I don't know. It's like people who buy the prepared peanut butter and jelly sandwich with the crusts cut off. Like, all right. Like, there's a market for everything. All righty. I got to bail before I get stupid.
All right.
Yeah. Always fun.
Have a lovely one.
Wee.
That was a real thing that he wore to the Grammys.
I know it was, and I saw it, but is there a story behind it?
I don't know.
Or is he just I know he's a fucking idiot. But
it looks like Mario, like Haunted Mansion or something like that.
Yeah.
Steve Eliason, he sent me a copy of Van Sciver's Book of Mormon comic.
Yeah, he sent me one too. I don't think it came in yet, but
that's cool to check it out. I was mentioning that's Ethan Van Sciver's brother, who also drew the stuff for 12 Rules for Life. He drew all the art in that. And he was a Marvel comic, but he's the guy who also, I brought up before, co-opted Rainbow Bright and turned it into Rainbow the Brute.
Yeah.
I like this one. The images of all the stuff of people overtaking like He-Man and making it about and all that sorts of stuff. Well, he co-opted Rainbow Bright, turned it into Rainbow the Brute. And the joke of it always is he'll gash you, gore you, kill you and all that stuff, but he's also a pretty good dad. That'll be cool. So, your childhood crush is coming out in the new movie.
I know. He's so dreamy.
Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
Come on, Christopher Nolan.
Is it going to be the starring role, do you think?
I don't know. I just whatever. I don't know. Maybe it'll be fine, but
there it is. Elliot Page in The Odyssey. That's one of the first times it doesn't look like she's dying. Or did I say the wrong pronoun? Normally, like in most other pictures, like I generally look and go, it looks like death is near. It dead seriously does. There's something like gray and sad, and I don't know what about the look, and not that happens with every single like transgender person, but particularly with Elliott Smith, it's always like, yee. You gonna watch it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll watch it. I still haven't watched Oppenheimer.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't.
I saw that. That's all right.
I watch most Christopher Nolan movies, but I'll also watch most movies that if I think it's going to be a big enough clusterfuck. Like, there's a bunch of people that have clamored for Elliot Page to be the new Flash. And I'm like, yeah, I would watch the shit out of that.
So continuing on like the Emilia Paris stuff. So some more of the criticisms about it is that it's made by a French director and it's like a complete and total joke how Mexico is represented with the cartels. And so some Mexicans, actually like a Mexican trans person, made a parody of it with French gangs, with French trans gangs, making fun of the whole
La
thing.
France nécessaire. Let's maybe come la baguette, la croissant, others.
Like when the whole entire thing is getting dunked on, like you're getting dunked on even by trans filmmakers, and they're still going to go all the way with it and have it win. Like I don't know if for sure we're not going to see Best Actress, although maybe they'll go that way. Maybe the votes were already in anyway before that stuff came out, but maybe this thing has more nominations or as many nominations as the most nominated films in history. And so they bring in, they have these like two French gang going at each other.
Okay, well, they already fucked up by making it music better.
That's better, huh? It's like one of the, I guess it's a baguette gang versus But part of what they're making fun of is like, I guess the Spanish is just also terrible all throughout the Emilia Perez one. But that's all that with that whole entire thing. There's a transgender computer science cult in California that has killed a person. Did you listen to this?
And this will segue us nicely. It's like this dystopian future of America where the bottom drops out, history is erased, and you have two warring tribes, the kind of genderless, left-wing, activist archetype, and then you have the kind of the striver, engineer, kind of completely uncreative and unindividualistic type. You know, it's like that's the society we don't want on either end. We've got to have.
So these guys are talking about it, but here's the actual thing. There's actually a whiz kids like transgender murder gang. I don't even know what they're called themselves. Two apparent unrelated murders could have been linked in a way alleged cult made up of highly educated computer scientists with interest in animal rights. The murder gang of a computer whiz kids linked to the killings of a border patrol agent and a landlord 3,000 miles apart. And it's it is like dead seriously like a gang of different major kind of like tech millionaires who've all trans themselves and are now have supposedly and beyond this more murders going on. It's so crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah. That's all normal, right? Just business as usual. You showed me a clip of some person who says she wouldn't take on any more trans customers as a therapist and put it on Facebook or something like that.
Did I?
And yeah, this one. Do you remember it?
Oh yeah, vaguely.
Like flies. I lost another one of my clients.
Oh yeah.
Clearly was a Trump supporter. And they sent me a message. They never cancel their appointment. They don't have the courage to cancel their appointment.
You shut it down.
Yeah. I there's not much else to it than that, but like I can't believe like shouldn't you lose a license for that? Like coming on and like complaining and saying people can't be of a certain thing and then telling what happened in therapy
Yeah,
sessions
so
with people?
it's kind of like Morgan's got this family friend who is like, she's not a therapist, but she's one of the rare successful life coaches, right? And her advice is always terrible. Like she just, I don't know, rub a crystal on it, you know. But she lost a lot of her income because there was this really rich family who was employing her. And then they saw all of her posts about how like all of Trump supporters are racist and shit like that. And this was like back when he first got elected. And so she lost that business. And I was like, I don't really know what you expect to happen here. Like, I mean, if I were a therapist and they saw all of my shit posting and they're like, well, we're proud leftists, so we're not going to have you anymore, I'd be like, yeah, that's fair.
So the two gender stuff. So I guess Trump passed a executive order that bars the sports stuff. The thing that you've asked some of our naysayers to solve for you.
Yeah, what's the only defense, like the only pushback I see to that is, oh, wow, really? You think this is don't you have bigger things to deal with than this?
Yeah, there's only like 40 of them out there.
I noticed you're not defending the actual concept.
Yeah. According to the orange, there's only two genders, but we're over here like, I guess lots more genders.
Yeah, I can see all two of them represented there.
So Jonathan started making like a bunch of the queer theorist AIs and started honing in on some of the looks on some of them. I think you can see like right in their eyes that they're terrible people. No, hold on a second here. First,
Is it wild that you watching comment sections change? Like, because I remember in like 2014 until like 2019 being the only person in there saying like, come on, this is bullshit. And not just with trans shit, but just with everything crazy. And like there would be people that would come to me that I knew personally and they'd be like, oh, I like the stuff you say. But there wouldn't be anybody in the comment section on my site. And now it's like you look at the comment section for that thing you pulled up and it's the first few of them are like, yeah, there's only two genders.
Yeah. Trump claims there are only two genders. Historians say that's never been true. So very, very Foucauldian. And because of that, Jonathan started pulling up some 101, some gender theory 101 things. And I read through the whole thing. Well, I didn't read it. I listened to it. I found out the stuff that's really, really boring. If you go and put it to text to speech stuff, and then you can put it on like quadruple speed, you can get through stuff really quick without having to sit and read it. And I recommend doing that if you just need to charge through anything ever. But hold on a second here. Let me see if I can pull it up. This queer theory history, the history of queer theory, if you want like a quick rundown on it, because you want to know what, like all the degeneracy is like already there, just even in the basic stuff of it. They just already start, you show how they start deconstructing all the different lines and all the different things, and then it lands back to Foucault. And I was talking to some other people about Foucault and his weird stuff, and this is I got ChatGPT to write about it here, although you usually have to yell at it to tell the truth about it, and then before it tells the truth about it, it'll go, this content may violate our usage policies. Yeah, I know, fellas, but I keep asking him about like the curled milk incident, and this is the lap court incident, 1867. Foucault describes a case where a village halfwit, likely someone with an intellectual disability, offered a young girl a few pennies to engage in what he calls the curdled milk game. What do you think the curdled milk game is? Euphemism for masturbation with like a young girl. The older girls in the village refused him, but the younger girl agreed. This act was discovered, and what might have been considered a minor transgression or a local matter instead of becoming a case for medical and legal intervention. Oh, the state, the legal state, man.
So is the actual story was the actual story revealed? Because we've talked about this before. Because the way that he's making it sound is like the dad's like, okay, no
that's
more
part,
raping my daughter, you silly goose.
Part of the Foucauldian genealogical methodology is to come at it like to start out with the thing of like, this was just a near the bed grab, man. I was just a little bit of masturbation from a little kid, man. And generally, like, whenever I like hear Foucauldian stuff really played out, I imagine like some sort of caught with their hand in the cookie jar, terrible person trying to get away with it, describing to their parents like, who's to say they can have a cookie and when they can have a cookie, man? Like, what's cookie time? I don't even know what cookie time is, man. Like, who's to say what biology is? Biology doesn't mean anything, man. It doesn't mean nothing.
Are you trying to do Dr. Roxo?
I don't even know what that
is. You sound exactly like in Metalocalypse. One of their friends is a Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown, and I do, and you sound exactly like him, like justifying the bullshit that he actually. There's an episode where he does have sex with a fan, and she's like 15, and
oh my gosh,
gets in trouble for it. So
imagine that.
Yeah,
imagine that. It's exactly that voice and exactly that sort of justification going on, because that really is like what Foucault is. I swear, when I was a little kid, I got so good at bullshitting my parents into letting me have a sleepover. Like I became like the world's best negotiator, liar for that. And I even remember as a kid kind of being like, man, I'm really getting good at this. And for some reason, anytime like I read Foucault, I feel like it's young kid me arguing for a sleepover. I get like, oh man, just not stopping until my mom just like couldn't relent or something like that. But he's doing it for society to let him bang kids.
See, I was always the stubborn realist, like, because my mom is impossible to argue with, but I'm like, I don't know, I was like a boy younger version of her, and so I'd always argue with her. And I remember talking to my younger siblings about that just a couple of years ago, and they were all like, yeah, we never understood why you did that. Because like, if you just make mom think she's right, she'll give you whatever you want. I was like, it's the fucking principle, you assholes.
Yeah, well, so here it is, some more. Foucault says, the sexuality became a site of legal and medical control. Oh, this is where it gets bad. It wasn't bad that an adult did something bad with a kid. It gets bad where legal and medical control start intervening here and stuff gets all modernized and
oh god,
technocratic. In previous eras, such an act might have just been handled informally, but by the 19th century, it was framed as a case requiring institutional intervention. The perversity of sexuality was increasingly classified and categorized. The growing role of psychiatry and criminology meant that sexuality, especially non-normative or childish expressions of it, was now seen as something requiring diagnosis or surveillance or even regulation. Oh my goodness. It's so bad. It's so terrible that they started viewing it that way. Power shaped what counted as normal and abnormal. Oh, see, this is the stuff like why I'm bringing it up, that I wanted to go and argue with Bill Real about how using this framework, he could not justify what Joseph Smith did with underage women. Because what about the childish expressions? What about the non-normative form of love that they may have between each other? And why are you diagnosing and surveillance with your current day categorizations and your current day, what's the term they use? They use violent, like your violent categorizations and your violent use of the state. Like, why would you have the state intervene what was happening between Joseph Smith and those young women? But this sort of stuff, you'd also ask a Church of Korihor, who says we can have like all the different forms of lovey and all that sort of deal out there, right? If there's all those different forms of love out there and then you can get married in polycules and all that stuff, why couldn't Joseph Smith get married to a 14-year-old in the Church of Korihor? Is that against the bylaws of the Church of Korihor? Like, where is the limiting factor in the lovey, open lovey church? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Church of Korihor, we're asking about consent in marriage because Bill Real had a suggestion to have a long debate the other week about why it could be justifiable that Joseph Smith had sexual relations with younger women, and we brought up we could argue the framework through Foucault, and they were going over Foucault's curdled milk story in the history of sex right here, where he asks, what about childhood consent and those types of things? But it is just a general question that we'd bring up, and we would like to be debunked about the morality of queer theory.
No, Bill doesn't know anything about Foucault.
He would endorse the queer theory, though, don't you believe? Just because that's something that comes out of academia, and academia says good, and academia must certainly be proper.
He would like selectively endorse Foucault, I think, because if you tell him it's like he's the grandfather of queer theory, he might immediately endorse it because queer theory just sounds like, oh yeah, gay, right? Foucault's relevant because Chris was Real was asking for people to like apologize.
Foucault is the most cited person in all of academia.
He is, but also like Real was asking for apologists to come on and justify Joseph Smith's relationship with underage girls. And Chris was saying, like, I'm not a Mormon apologist, but I could play a queer theory apologist, and I could use queer theory, specifically like Judith Butler and Michel Foucault, to justify completely within the framework of queer
and
theory.
I could even go through David Halperin and use Dan McClellan and Taylor Petrie, who quote and use and cite these same people to justify it. This is the point. This is the point we're making. The point is making that they are making moral judgments of things that they won't go against them when it's like their own moral team that speaks otherwise on the other side of stuff, or they'd be afraid of doing it because we're more than positive. Because when it came up we appeared on Jonathan Streeter's channel and we talked about things like we have here Foucault and Simone de Beauvoir and Sartre and all these different people's affidavit to lower the age of consent in France, to drop it entirely. The famous old, I think it was 1968 affidavit to drop it entirely. And we covered that on Jonathan's channel. I think he posted it here like once again. But We could absolutely, via current day academic humanities, in what pervades current day academic humanities, justify what Joseph Smith did. 100%. Like they couldn't even argue even closely against it. But let me see if I can pull the affidavit up here. Well, Jonathan sent like an article about it, but Rista, what did you read on Wikipedia about him?
About Foucault?
What does that say on there? Let's see. Hold on a second. I'm just trying to get back to Facebook. There it is.
Oh.
I had this whole 30 years of queer theory thing pulled up right here, which is what I'm suggesting people read. If you want to read it quickly, put it into some sort of voice to text thing and listen to it quickly. But then we got on to where we talked about queer theory Jeopardy the other week and how many of them speak out against age categorization. And it's all of them, every single one of them. Let's see here.
Well, if you think about it, it is pretty oppressive. Like, I would have totally wanted to bang. I totally would have wanted to bang a hot teacher when I was like 14 years old, and it's really oppressive of you to tell me that I am not able to consent to that.
Because what's age, man? What's age? Age doesn't mean anything. There's no purpose to age. Age is just a construct, dude. Calls for legal child sex rebound on luminaries of May 68. Some causes championed in the Paris Revolt are now seen as very troubling. Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir and the current French health and educated ministries, Bernard Kouchner and Jacques Lang, were among the signatories of the petition in the 1970s calling for pedophilia to be decriminalized. It emerged yesterday. No, we've known about this. We've known about this all along. It emerged yesterday. It just became like okay for the Guardian to start admitting yesterday. When was this? When was this article posted? Jonathan sent it to us. But Jonathan did a really good long video on the whole affidavit and actually translated the whole entire thing into English. And basically every famous French luminary, as they say here, everybody, there's Deleuze and Guattari and Althusser and all the different people from the French postmodernist thing all pushed towards.
Yeah, you want to try your best to separate the art from the artist, but when every single artist of a particular persuasion starts saying, like, I mean, what really is the age of consent, man? Like, eventually you're like, okay, what the fuck is this ideology?
Jonathan pointed this out. I want to read it too. The Queer Lens from Eve Sedgwick aim to make readers more alert of potential queer nuances of literature, encouraging the reader to displace their heterosexual identifications in favor of searching out queer idioms. Thus, besides obvious double entendres, the reader is to realize other potentially queer ways in which words might resonate. For example, in Henry James, Sedgwick was said to have observed the words and concepts like fond, foundation, issue, assist, fragrant, flagrant, glove, gauge, center, circumference, aspect, medial, and words containing the sound rect, including any words in their anagrams, may also have anal erotic associations.
Holy shit. I am fond of my wife's butt. So he is correct.
This is the first thing they go to, like on what the queer lens is. Nobody knows like what the queer lens is. Like, nobody's read. Just like the Mormons haven't read their stuff. Nobody's read their academic humanities. Like they don't know what the fuck's in there.
This feels like a projection type thing where some dude just like he wants to convince his buddy to butt fuck him. He's like, let me read your essay. And you're like, oh damn, you use the word fond in there. Are you talking about a butthole right now? Is that what you talking about a butthole, aren't you? You're talking about my butthole, aren't you? Holy shit, dude, you're talking about my butthole.
Yeah.
Nice.
It gets into more buttholes there, but it always goes to like buttholes or something.
It's philosophy. I say that philosophy is I like this my idea on philosophy. There's like there's three type of people that get in philosophy. There's midwits who want to pretend that they're not midwits. There's really, really smart people who eventually, inevitably go insane. And then there's fucking coomers who really, really, really want to justify their degeneracy, especially, but not limited to, fucking children. So that's the only three people you'll see who get really big into philosophy. So unless you go insane, you're either dumb or a creeper.
Yeah. Well, we should go to another hymn, another possible hymn. We like hymns over here.
Yeah.
This would be a trad nationalist Church of Korihor hymn. Just kidding.
And gender now to be considered an actual Christian. I can't have degenerate views on sexuality and gender. Wow, the list keeps growing. Wow, the list keeps growing. Wow.
These are fantastic.
The list keeps growing. Wow, the list keeps growing. Wow. The list keeps growing. And gender. Wow, the list keeps growing.
This is brilliant.
The list keeps growing. Wow, the list keeps growing. Wow, the list keeps growing.
It reminds me of a wonderful video I'm going to try to look up.
What? Which one?
It reminds me of a wonderful video I'm going to try to see if I can find. It's from probably a decade ago.
Let's finish off the story of Foucault's curdled milk.
Do it.
Context in the history of sexuality. This story appears in the context of Foucault's discussions of how modern sexuality was invented. Foucauldian genealogy. It was just invented it was a conspiracy theory. It was a conspiracy theory put down on us by the scientists and the man. This story appears in the context of Foucault's discussion of how modern sexuality was invented as an object of scientific study and legal control. He contrasts older religions' moral frameworks where sexuality was often a matter of sin with newer medical and legal frameworks that sought to classify and control sexual behavior. Would you like a deeper breakdown of how this fits into Foucault's theory of power and knowledge?
Yes, I would.
Oh, should I tell it yes? I was going to tell him no. Sure. It lied about it like first 3 times. It never wants to admit that these stories are out there about.
Yeah, you're right. Foucault was a creeper. But he was our creeper.
They might have been crimes and sins, but they weren't subject to medical classifications like pedophile and stuff like that. Like, why do we medicalize it? After the 19th century, acts like the Wood and Lap Court were no longer just individual misdeeds. They became cases for doctors, psychiatrists, and legal authorities to investigate and define.
Yeah. We don't want. How come the cops got to deal with it, man? Like, I just banged a 12-year-old. I don't know why you got to get the fucking cops involved. Just chill. It's probably because of the systemic oppression I've experienced throughout my life.
There it is, the biopower thing. Yeah. In the lab court case, what might have once been ignored or handled locally became a matter of public concern requiring medical, legal, and moral scrutiny. This reflects the broader disciplinary mechanisms of modern power rather than the punishing sexuality outright. Society increasingly sought to monitor, document, and correct it. But you shouldn't be correcting it, man. Why do you, who's to say? Who's to say? Who's to say? Who's to say? Who is to say? Childhood sexuality deviance and mental disability were increasingly linked in medical discourse. The state and medical professionals intervened in areas of private life, diagnosing and categorizing behaviors. Like it goes to the health with pathological category, degenerate and abnormal. Ooh, it's so stupid. God, Foucault sucks. But I only got force-fed this in grad school, like I got force-fed scriptures in my youth. It's exactly the same. Man.
Risto saying we need an AI video of Chris Hansen showing up at a sting operation to catch Michel Foucault, and then Foucault convinces him that he was actually right.
Why are you legalizing my situation? And who's to say that this is some sort of abnormality? You're calling it a medical condition? What? Well, back in 1865, Czechoslovakia, this was viewed as not only right, but a holy ritual.
Well,
How
Mr.
dare
Foucault,
you?
I have the transcripts, and it says here, I would like to penetrate your anus with my tongue.
Yes,
Fuck,
this is
baby,
something
fuck,
that
I
happened
would like
in
to fuck.
Persia. In Persian in 500 DC, this was normal. It was a normal part of societal life. In fact, you didn't love your mother unless you did that for her in Persia in 500. So who's to say?
But Mr.
Who's to
Foucault,
say what the-
Mr. Foucault, I have to ask you: do you have children?
No, I don't. I don't believe I have children. I don't believe that the children that I have slept with are able to procreate yet.
Well, Mr. Foucault, do you have nieces or nephews?
I do have nieces and nephews.
Okay, so if somebody were to come to their house, a 48-year-old man in your case, and attempt to have sexual relations with them, how would you feel about that, Mr. Foucault?
Mr. Hansen, you know my shiny, bald, round head. That's happening to my junk right now as you describe the situation. Like it's please don't. I mean, it's not the moment for sensual discussion. I mean, I don't really want to get turned on in this exact moment.
Well, Mr. Foucault, I have to say this is a first for To Catch a Predator. This is usually the moment where the predator expresses regret and says, "No, I would not."
Regret.
In fact,
Do you want to change me through medicalization and through the power of the state? This is
I don't-
biopower. This is oppression. I mean, I just explored different ways of existing and being. It's consensual. The online person consented to me, and I consent to them. In fact, if anything, they were pushing for it, and I was the one saying, I don't know if I feel like this.
Mr. Foucault, I do not mean to imply in any way that your way of being isn't perfectly valid.
Yeah, you don't want to get canceled, do you? You don't want to get. I mean, I could cancel you. I
gotta ask what
Chris Hansen. Do you want to get canceled? I can get you canceled.
I gotta ask, Mr. Foucault, what
Are
I
you
asked
phobic?
at the end
Are
of
you
every one of
pedophobic?
these. What do you think should happen to you right now since you've done this?
I mean, it was just a kid. It was a consent of a kid, man. In 1490 Spain, this just would have been like a slap on the wrist. In 1490 Spain, the way people viewed sexuality with a kid was that it was just basically like having dinner. It was like going to the Olive Garden, like the way you view going to the Olive Garden today in 14th century Spain. That's just what they did, man.
So, but why was it a slap on the wrist? Like, if it was wrong, why was it a slap on the wrist?
I didn't mean like a slap, because even the slap on the wrist was part of the sexual act. You know, part of the slap on the wrist was part of the whole entire display. It was part of the culture. It was part of the time frame of the time. And don't get me started on 17th century Thailand, where unless you took your father and cornholed him in front of your child, you weren't even a loving kid. You weren't even like just you know how Mr. Garrison was very, very offended that his father never raped him. Like that is a real situation that happened in 7th century Africa. I mean, you can look up, you can verify all these things through my references to myself.
The slap on the wrist is how you say, not really a punishment, how you say, but in fact it was a celebration of the sexual, as you would call it now, deviancy, but as we would call it back then,
Will you frame it in your modern day?
expression.
Your current day epistem cannot view this as anything but a medical problem.
I would have been very grateful for the slap on the wrist. It would have been sexually freeing and exhilarating.
In fact, who is to say that if you put the handcuffs on me, that you are not committing a sexual act in a certain way against me and my being? I do not consent to you handcuffing me. This is a sexual assault. Well, at least it was viewed that way in 13th century.
You just need to have a Chris Hanna Foucault bot hour.
How to bullshit your way through getting away with anything through Foucauldian justifications. Foucauldian justifications, number one cited thing in most academia, and then you call it Foucauldian justifications. And Foucauldian history, like laundered history, which is bullshit history. Bullshit history that you can claim just because it was kind of there. Just like the bullshit history of saying what Achilles was gay for his cousin. Achilles was queer gay for his cousin because he was very sad when he died.
No, I tell people that all the time. I was like, if somebody like shot Chris in the face right now on stream, I'd be like, damn it. How do we turn this off? Like, I would be very indifferent. And the only reason is because Chris and I aren't butt fucking.
You don't want historians to.
Yeah. If I was sad at all, then you would know, like, for sure. Oh, man, there's some shit going on there.
Michael Malice says, anyone who claims a child can make informed decisions about gender is minutes away from claiming a child can make informed decisions about sex. That rings true to me. But yeah, this stuff I would love to be dispelled of. Like I would love, like I know, like Jonathan Streeter would take me down on the morality of it. That's an exmo, a famous exmo. Oh, wait a minute, but he got completely thrown under buses and called like a bigot and everything in the world by people like Nathan Bigler for pointing this stuff out in the world. But it's fine to point out to the Mormons. You can point it out to the Mormons. Point out to the Mormons degeneracy.
Yeah, let them know that Joseph Smith was a piece of shit for having a million wives, but you know.
But we don't really know what piece of shit is, and we don't really know what's wrong with any sort of consensual relationship situation anyway. And maybe, I guess if you throw God in there, it makes it uninformed consent because now it's too much of a power dynamic. Is that the?
Well, it's hard to say because the power dynamics, it can come and go as the argument needs. You know, because it'd be difficult to argue that in their framework that there's any relationship that had zero power dynamics. And like unless there's zero power dynamics, can consent really exist in the way that they want it to exist? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who is a good boy?
Morality is a social construct. I am neither good nor bad. I am simply dog.
You want to go for a walk?
Yes, please.
That's Fargo season 2.
Yeah,
the babysitter's explaining Camus to the
our favorite
mother
scene from
to the cancer-ridden mother.
Your French philosophers. Doesn't she even say that or something like that?
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't know who this Camus feller is. But I'm guessing he didn't have a 6-year-old daughter in the next room.
Gosh, I love that series.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
the most recent season sucked balls, but
you said that. I still haven't watched it because I'm so sad about that. because it's seriously like my favorite series ever. The first 3 seasons. Season 4 felt a little weak, but I haven't gone back to give it a second chance. So I don't know, maybe. But what you say about season 5 is just like, come
Yeah,
on.
it's girl boss MacGyver who was oppressed in some religious sex cult. The Camus scene. Oh, there's the time the young girl brings up Camus to him, and it keeps thinking it's that scene that's earlier. You remember, like when the girl who's reading Camus brings it up in the butcher shop earlier?
Yeah, well, she brings it up to a lot of people, and none of them understand her. They're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, because he's becoming all nihilist. Oh, here we go.
Which I feel like it's brilliant because it's not only is it how most people would respond to Camus, but it's probably just how you should respond to Camus.
Camus says knowing we're gonna die makes life absurd.
Well, I don't know who that is. But I'm guessing he doesn't have a 6-year-old girl.
He's French.
Ugh, I don't care if he's from Mars. Nobody with any sense would say something that foolish. We're put on this earth to do a job. And each of us gets the time we get to do it. And when this life is over, and you stand in front of the Lord, well, you try telling him it was all some Frenchman's joke.
That's like the perfect argument for like pragmatic Christianity. Like, you don't have to believe it, just do it.
Bit too religious there, man. Mentions the gods, I don't know the gods. Yeah, we should. I'm starting to, with this new computer I got, starting to try to borrow from Streeter to learn to do some AI stuff, so we don't have to put it all on him. But it will surely not be as good as his at first. But maybe we could. Well, number one, we heard that Adrian Brody was able to put a French accent, so I could do a better French accent on our entire skit right there. And then we could do a completely AI'd out version of Foucault gets caught on Chris Hansen and then talks Chris Hansen into being okay with it.
That's a perfect idea.
What's our times? 10:30. Man, this is usually it flies by a little bit faster. We
can keep going if you want to, or we can quit. It doesn't matter to me.
Toy 2. Is there any stuff that you wanted to hit on or cover in all the world? There was the stuff with Trump getting people to comply with threats of tariffs and stuff like that. You commented something on
that was hilarious. The tariffs are hilarious to me because, from what I can tell, like I never think anything is as cut and dry as anybody says that it is, right? So like if everybody, like even people that I trust, like Dave Smith, are saying that tariffs are literally always a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I listened to the episode on that.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, okay, I don't trust that, because if they were just literally always a bad thing, like why would anybody use them ever? and plus, like, I don't know.
Well, they've obviously worked as a bargaining tool, and that's what a lot of people don't get. Even with the thing recently he said about like take over Gaza, and by now everybody, even the other nations, should have figured out that Trump says wild things, kind of like in a negotiation. You say the wild thing to make other stuff happen that's not going to be the final wild thing, but they have to believe that he's nutty enough to do it too.
I know that's the thing, is you have to put on that persona of the person who's actually willing to do that shit. And in fact, you got to be because I fully believe that if Canada and Mexico hadn't played ball, like he would have done the tariffs.
Why would they cave immediately and exactly if it didn't matter to them? But one of the areas where like even Dave Smith and libertarians are arguing for it is it makes sense if it's just like a good that you want from that country that you don't have. Like I want the good, I want the thing, like I want the send me your oil or send me your, but it doesn't make sense if it's labor. Like if they're sending away your labor to that country, and then they're able to trade off of that labor with no tax. And then here, if they do the labor, they do have to send it away with the tax somewhere. It's obviously going to favor that labor, for no other reason. It's just that there's people doing it.
I got into a discussion with my brother-in-law about the tariffs, and he was so annoyed with how it played out, because I had told him, I was like, I don't know, man. He frequently uses them as a negotiation tactic, and then Colombia just flopped over in less than a day. Not only did they flop,
In both
they're
the
like,
cases, they
we'll
just
send our planes. Canada flopped in just a day. Mexico flopped in the same day, like right away. And he's like, my brother-in-law's telling me about it. He's like, I really hate tariffs, and I hate that. I really hate that I was wrong about like they worked. I'm mad that they worked.
Well, I can't believe they did that. But you could also imagine especially if they're just being used as leverage, not as an actual thing. Because I think whenever Trump talks about the tariffs will give us money, it'll be so great they give us money. Well, partially he's going to have to act like he really actually loves the tariffs for people to make it work. But then why would he back off of them too if people back off of the other things? But one of the things about it is a longer term one, you'd have to imagine what it's going to do is, oh gosh, now you just made the price of that manufactured steel from over there go up. And now that hurts the American economy because you have to pay more for that manufactured thing over in Japan. Yes, but it would just take some time, like a year and a half or something, for people around here to notice that now there's an opportunity, a better opportunity to manufacture it
There's
here.
a hole in the market now.
And it takes a minute. It takes a minute for that opportunity to present itself, and so it would, if they were even in there,
Risto was asking about that Japanese banker, and I wanted to update the sequel on that because there was the Japanese banker who had promised to invest $100 million, and when he was announcing that, everybody's clapping, and Trump comes up and says, "That's really nice, but we're wondering if maybe you could make it $200 million." Just puts him on the spot. Classic, Trump power play move. And the guy gets all flustered. Oh, we promised 100 million, but we try.
Oh, where he got him to put in more?
Yeah,
he got it up to 500.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's the sequel to that. Is that guy just the other week came out and said, if things keep going the way they are, we're going to do 500 million. So it's irritating personality quirks that work. That's what I was explaining to Morgan earlier, how I am just so far away from being any Trump-like figure. Because you look at him, he does things that, if somebody did to you in real life, you'd be like, this guy's a fucking douche. Where he,
oh, yeah.
When he walks with somebody, he always walks just a little bit ahead of them, so they're always having to kind of keep up. When he shakes somebody's hand, he pulls them in, so they're off balance, but he's firm. It's all just crazy douchey power plays, but they fucking work.
It's one of those things because some of those things that back down on the tariffs, some of the coping that people said about it was well, they were going to do it anyway. And you kind of go, so I've played in poker games, and in poker game, you really have to learn, if you want to win a big tournament, you have to learn to be the bully when you get the big stack. And one of the things that happens when you got the big stack is you just keep pushing no matter what, even if your stuff's good or not. And so they're sitting there hoping you won't just push and push and push them. And you push, and you'll see them go, well, I was just going to fold this one anyway. You didn't need to bet it. And you're just going to go yeah, you were. Yeah, you were. You have to learn how to big stack bully people around like that. And that will always be a justification that they say, I wasn't going to play this hand anyway. Geez, type stuff. But if they were the big stack, they would play it right back. Risto sent the link to it of him asking for the more money. I remember I saw that one live. What were they gonna pull up?
Damn.
Anyway, with that stuff, I mean, it still has to play out. There's some of the stuff I'm still totally agnostic about. The economy and how economy works, especially on that big of a scale. Sometimes you're happy to see that something different's being done or happened or pushing, but some of it you still kind of be like, well, let's see if this goes. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know if it
I don't
will.
know. I have the same reaction when somebody tells me that tariffs are just bad across the board as I do when somebody tells me that, like, the hurricane was caused definitely by climate change. And I was like, you know, I understand being against tariffs in principle. I get it if you're like a real big free trade guy and you think that those restrictions shouldn't be in place at all.
But they should drop their tariffs too. They should be.
Yeah, I know. Like, but so I understand being against it in principle, but saying that they never ever do anything good, well then why? I don't know. I'm like, why do we still have some? Why did Joe Biden not get rid of every single one of the Trump tariffs if tariffs are always bad? Gramsci.
There's all of our postmodern neo-Marxists.
Okay, here's the hard mode. You got to pick one of them to watch your kid for a weekend.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, man.
Usually I'd go directly to the women, but I'm like, with
not these
postmodern.
ones.
Yeah, I know.
Gail Rubin.
With postmodern philosophers, that shit's out the window.
Paulo Freire. I'd probably have to go with Antonio Gramsci because he was so old that he was probably just like a true economic Marxist and not a degenerate.
I think I'd probably have to go with Simone de Beauvoir, and it's only because I have boys, so I know that she's like one of the only people on here who wouldn't rape them. She would just beat the shit out of them because she hates men. And I'm like, if I got to choose between my kid getting raped and getting his ass kicked, I guess I'd choose getting his ass kicked.
That's quite the gambit, man. Like,
Jesus, yeah.
Which one of these would you let watch your kids? Or...
Fuck.
I think I'd have to go with Gramsci.
I don't know Gail Rubin, but that guy looks.
Oh, Gail Rubin. That's Gal.
Looks like
Gail Rubin is female.
She looks like the creepiest motherfucker on this entire thing.
Gail Rubin definitely advocated for the creepy stuff, all the age stuff and everything.
Which one of these people didn't? Would you say like?
Did like Gramsci? They probably didn't like mention it. Like people who didn't like. I think almost all their names were on that.
That's oh god. Really? Like even Judith Butler? No, I mean even Simone de Beauvoir.
If they were yeah, Simone for sure. Simone and Sartre were for sure on it.
Was Gramsci on it?
No, Gramsci died in like the 30s.
Gramsci
died. That's why some people like try to argue. He died like in prison, and his notes from prison. That's the name of his book. Notebooks from Prison. Well, a bunch of books, a bunch of writings.
Rista said, "Where is Julia Child? The list is incomplete." Yeah, we found out through that show that Julia
Child's actually in with them and running around, hanging out with Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. I wonder if ChatGPT can give me the list of who all signed the affidavit.
I just tell you, like, I can't answer this. Even that new Chinese one won't answer those questions. But it will. I can't have an account on it anymore because I asked about Tiananmen Square. So now every time I try to sign back up, it kicked me out all the way.
It's telling me about the petition. 70 public figures. Oh, here we go. We got Foucault, we got Derrida, we got Althusser. Roland Barthes on there. Deleuze, as I said. I actually heard that Deleuze just signed it because he wanted to be one of the cool kids, but supposedly Deleuze kind of lived a trad life, supposedly.
Imagine that being the cool kids you want to be.
Yeah.
People that are like it's bullshit that you can't just bang a 14-year-old. Like, yeah. No, I mean, I don't really believe that, but these guys are so cool.
Louis Althusser, who was Derrida's PhD advisor, who also murdered his wife through strangling.
Good Lord.
Louis Althusser
Did
murdered
you
his wife.
consent to it Though?
Probably. He was schizophrenic though. Jacques Derrida signed it. Leotard signed it. Did he put Leotard on there? Leotard is the guy that I always talk about. Did he have him on there?
I don't see him.
Leotard's the dude who wrote that book that I like to bring up, the libidinal economy, where it kind of says, and I think it's true if you were like an actual person who believed that there's only social constructs in the world, that if you are a person who is a gay Mormon, you would not be that person unless you were born into Mormonism, right? You have to thank the Mormonism of pouring you into that gay mold of the social construct that created you into the queer gay person that you are. Like your Mormonish upbringing turns you into that. So thank you.
So I feel like I feel like I always I do my best to not, judge somebody based on the religion that they ascribe to, right? But it depends on the religion, right? Because like Mormon apostles have said some really stupid things. That doesn't, and shitty things too. That doesn't make me think that everything that I should just discard everything that current Mormon apostles say, right? But if like in the 50s or 60s, every single Mormon apostle and the prophet were on a list of people who petitioned the government to get rid of the age of consent, I'd be like, okay, there's something fucky with this ideology here.
Sati is way earlier than this whole era, wasn't he? Like this is 1970s, 1980s. That's why Gramsci wouldn't have been involved with it. But Gramsci might have just been like one of those old school. We always talk about it that Kimberly Crenshaw called them vulgar Marxists. So before like the turn to like the postmodern, they were just vulgar, terrible Marxists. And actually, I don't know that Horkheimer and Adorno would have been so involved in this world. And Adorno supposedly, like if you go and like read Adorno, he has his Dialectic of the Enlightenment book, but he also has his stuff like where he criticizes jazz music as jazz music being too degenerate. Adorno says jazz music is degenerate black music type stuff. So like the older school you get, but he's also writing more in the 1930s and stuff like that, him and Horkheimer. But Adorno there is also the bozo that everybody gave credit for writing what he called it, the authoritarian. He wrote a book called The Authoritarian Mind or something like that. Adorno, The Authoritarian Personality, and that book is the book credited 1950 sociology book. This is it right here. This book right here is the book credited with why everybody thought you could only be a right-wing authoritarian. This dumb book. It was Adorno who did it, and it's so ridiculous, and it's so funny that like out of academia, just in like the last 5 years, some different people started saying, "Oh, it turns out we did some studies, and there can be some left-wing authoritarianism there."
Wild.
Like, what on earth are you guys talking about? It was dead seriously just once again laundering. As I say, they launder their references. They launder the references into saying that this stuff is the authority figure on it. This sociologist, see, now he's a sociologist instead of just like a Marxist. You know what I mean? Now he's a sociologist, and this sociology book is the reason nobody but right wingers could be considered authoritarian until 5 years ago. It has this F scale. You might have heard the F scale. It's the fascism scale. Yeah.
I mean, they didn't catch a hint when Europe started invoking hate crime laws, where if you say like, why do we have so many Syrian migrants here, you could be prosecuted for a hate crime. Like,
yes, it's so ridiculous. Like, we really
don't feel like that might be a little bit authoritarian, maybe a little bit, even if it's good. Maybe it's a little bit authoritarian.
Yeah. Kendi's shit got shut down this week in the University of Boston.
Good.
And,
That dude, I don't know how he got as popular as he did because he's dumb.
yeah.
Like he sounds dumb. If you showed him to a normal person who knew nothing about any of this, he'd be like, that guy seems a little dumb.
Well, so if you wanted some general context that might kind of help explain woke rightness to you a little bit better, maybe Benjamin Boyce had that debate with Joel Berry and Dave the Distributist. And I think it's a little bit of straw man, but if you listen to it, Dave the Distributist argues that Kendi's right.
Really?
Yeah. And Dave the Distributist is a smart dude. But I also think that he doesn't think Kendi's right. I think his point is making that Kendi's right if I'm to buy your liberal worldview, right? I think that's the point he was making. But Joel Berry went back on Twitter and said, this guy thinks Kendi's correct. Listen to the exact thing if I can pull it up. Oh, do you think it'll write the name Kendi right? Show transcript. It's so crazy how fast these things can pull up a transcript. Kendi. All right, let's see it. All right, let's see it.
Obviously doing, right?
No, okay, so no, you're reflecting a leftist argument here. I mean, this is what Kendi says as well, and a good example is
he's just right about that.
So okay, so law enforcement, if it is,
let's back up to hear what the argument is.
Or to come to Britain, you would functionally exclude all Africans.
We'll back it up a little bit more.
And sharing in the legal benefits of America is going to have a de facto outcome that is discriminating against one race. So there was an article I wrote on this
let me give you
the purpose of the system is what it does. If you say that if you were to enact a policy that said, you had to have these deep cultural understandings about your heritage, to come to America or to come to Britain, you would functionally exclude all Africans. You would functionally exclude all Africans. And so the question is, you're going to implement that policy and then say that, oh, it was an accident that all Africans got excluded. No, obviously not. So you're sitting in the middle of this contradiction and asking people to buy that you're not doing something that you're obviously doing, right?
No, okay, so no, you're reflecting a leftist argument here. I mean, this is what Kendi says as well, and a good example is
he's just right about that.
So okay.
Nope, I think he's wholeheartedly accepting the Kendiism right there. Which is kind of ridiculous because just this week, Glenn Lowry came out saying, I refuse. He had this really good speech. I don't know if we'll go right to it, but he was just saying, because I don't know if it was on his channel or not, but he was just talking about, I just refuse to accept, you guys want us to just believe. Here.
Or you want equality? You want titular representation? You want a cover story? Or you want equality? Are you interested in developing the human potential of the African American population? Or are you merely interested in covering your ass by being able to present an optics that shows that you're a diverse and inclusive institution? Baking into the cake the practice of treating Blacks specially in virtue of their Blackness, people born in the year 2005 is not equality. I'm a college professor. We're on a college campus. So the question of affirmative action in higher education is a natural one to contemplate. I'm not sure what goes on here, but at Brown we get over 35,000 applications a year and we admit about 1,800 people. That's a pretty selective operation that we're engaged in. We're an elite institution. Average SAT score is, I'm sure it's over 1,400, combined math and verbal. It's an elite enterprise. Do we really want to build into our policy going forward forever the idea that Blacks simply can't be judged by the same standard with respect to this kind of undertaking? If indeed it's the case that African American applicants to a place like Brown University are on the whole not competitive, the numbers would be 3% or 4% instead of 12% or 13% if you did not take race into account when you made the decision about whom to admit, if indeed that's the case. Do you think that you're going to get to equality by institutionalizing the practice of lowering the bar? Oh, she's black. She's got an 1150, but that's okay. She's black. Do you really think that that's going to get you to equality? It is not. As a remedial enterprise undertaken in a transitional way with the intent of directly addressing historical inequity and trying to get on a different track than what had been, say the year is 1975, okay, I can see that. As a permanent practice, as the way of doing business, as a, in effect, compensatory endowment to people of color, so that they could be represented in numbers that don't actually reveal the disparity in their performances. It's a lot of things, but it's not equality. It leads to a lot of things that are not healthy, like patronization. We don't really expect, the soft bigotry, low expectations, we don't really expect our African-American students are presumptively disadvantaged. Think about that. You're black and you're presumptively disadvantaged? In virtue of being black? We need diversity, we need representation. Oh, I see. Now, the African Americans who are included in this rat race competition to get into these places, everybody in this room knows what I'm talking about. You apply to 20 colleges because you don't know whether you're going to get into one of them or not. We create a world in which the presence of African Americans is justified because they leaven the mix, because they bring some color to the table. It's a lot of things, but it's not equality. So what I've been saying of late about this question is, okay, you want to do affirmative action, go ahead, go ahead. I mean, I'm not gonna follow my story about it. Me personally, I'm not gonna throw a fit. No, it's not the same thing as racial discrimination against blacks in the history and so forth and so on. You go ahead and do it if you want to do it. But if you really want equality, you wouldn't be satisfied with that. If you really want equality, you would address yourself to the foundational root of why it is that African Americans as a population are underrepresented at the right tail of the distribution of intellectual and academic performance. Unless you do that, unless you change that foundational root, you'll never get equality. So you decide. You want representation or you want equality? You want titular representation? You want a cover story or you want equality? Are you interested in developing the human potential of the African American population? Or are you merely interested in covering your ass by being able to present an optics that shows that you're a diverse and inclusive institution? Okay? So no, I'm not against affirmative action, but I'm against hypocrisy. I'm against condescension. Okay, and I'm asking people to imagine what kind of country we're going to be in. Really? We're going to do this for another 30 years? We're going to do this for another 50 years? This is where we're going to be? It's, in my mind, unacceptable vision for our country, that we're going to depend upon treating black people differently because everybody knows they can't cut it.
I think one of my favorite Glenn Lowry moments is when they were doing a documentary about Thomas Sowell, and he was talking about Glenn Lowry. They're interviewing him about being an economist, and he just mentioned that, like, I would love to be the first black economist to win a Nobel Peace Prize, right? But if I found out that I only won it because I was black, I would be deeply insulted. I love that. That's just a classic liberal mindset, you know. I fucking love it. If I've always thought like that, if I could choose one person who wasn't, and it wasn't me, to like, you put that person in his 20-year-old body, and so he could be there for longer, it'd be Thomas Sowell. Like it'd have to be, because that's the kind of shit that he's saying all the time. Like I can't think of any, but there's probably others that I can't think of anybody else that I would pick over Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, not just for like the wealth of knowledge, but like his ways of communicating and stuff like that too. Like there's few times you hear people that you wish like you talked like them in sorts of ways.
Yeah.
And especially off the cuff. Christopher Hitchens was for sure one of them, just in the sense of not saying exactly like what he said, just like the way it would come out, like off the fly, like these perfect sentences and these perfect paragraphs. And Thomas Sowell's just like right there. Like anytime he starts going, it's like, man, did you formulate that whole paragraph before?
Yeah.
Like, how did you just speak so perfectly like that? And yeah, he's up there. Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter. John McWhorter's a little bit TDS-y, but I don't like look too down on some TDS-iness, but Trump derangement in this. But I've frequently said like, hey, if you could like pick any two random people to be president and vice president, I'm going,
Oh,
those
yeah.
two. Like I'd pick those two. Like put those two in.
Hell
But,
yeah.
I guess I'm a racist, or something like that. But
I know.
Um,
Yeah, the guy explaining Trump's racism and homophobia and sexism by like showing his cabinet pics. Like,
yeah, did you see the thing about they tried to take a picture of that party too of the
yeah, he did.
of the young
Well,
kids, and they cropped out the black kids and he didn't mention that it was a black kid who threw the party.
Yeah, the post that I saw was mentioning all of his pics and how like a few of them are the very first female pics, the very first openly gay pics for these specific positions, and also like, I mean, Kash Patel, first Indian to be appointed to that position, and
Nobody cares.
Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, well, and
Nobody cares. Nobody says nothing.
To
It's like
their
when
credit,
Condoleezza Rice was like the first probably black.
yeah, and to their credit, they're not advertising it, which
Marco
I like.
Rubio's Cuban, and yeah, they don't do it at all because it shouldn't matter. And even actually kind of adding that in there is a little bit of an insult. Like the way that Biden like wheeled down to say I must choose a black woman. They naturally said that he could have just chosen Ketanji Brown Jackson and left out that insult. You know what I mean? Like he
should have.
By adding that in before choosing her, he necessarily said that he was whittling down his options, from who's the best to something inside of a certain subcategory group.
Well, he did that with his VP pick as well.
Yeah, I guess in both cases.
Because as soon as he said that, I remember somebody asking me like, "Who's his VP pick gonna be?" I was like, "Probably Kamala Harris." And they're like, "Why?" I was like, "Because who else?"
I didn't think he'd do it because she dunked on him so hard, and
She did, but I was like, "Who else is he gonna pick?" Like, she has some amount of name recognition. Is he just gonna pick some no name? And I don't like who else. It's not like he's gonna pick Tulsi Gabbard because I mean she was on that stage too, but he wouldn't pick her.
There wasn't anybody else. I mean, but he also could have just done it without making the announcement first. And every once in a while, some people start to wonder if Biden didn't somewhat 3D chess that stuff, like purposely sabotage people with doing that stuff. But it didn't make any sense. But I think one of the reasons why, especially in that debate between David Distributis, who I think is a smart dude, I've listened to a bunch of stuff, but especially some of those guys that I listen to who are considered dissident right or woke right, the way that they are tantruming harder about Trump wins than even like leftists, because it's just kind of like, no, you must doomsday, you must black pill, you can't pretend like this is you're doing any good, or there's no reeling back and going back to 90s, there's no such thing as that. And if it kind of looks like, well, maybe we can a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, no, you for sure won't. But in that debate of like kind of saying the Kendi thing of like, well, basically you guys are going to set these limits that will de facto exclude those people because they de facto won't be able to do it. Like I just got to be, maybe this is the idealist in me and maybe it's not true or something like that. But I believe that they would rise to the challenge. I believe plenty of black people would rise to the challenge of not getting the extra leg and still getting there. That's what I believe. And not just that, rise more and better than they used to because there is that challenge there. There is that thing of saying, you can't do this. And well, we're going to do it. I think that would be the only way, like anything, just like in the gym, like the only way I can get somebody stronger is if they rise to the challenge of the next weight level, you know what I mean? And I believe that they can do it. I believe there's a bunch of it was brought up in that very debate, and it's one of Thomas Sowell's main points, is that was already happening before the what do they call it, the Great New Deal or the New Plan and stuff, where they suddenly did start subsidizing like a bunch of stuff. Like the black community was already on the rise and had really high
they're more on the rise than they are now.
Yeah, and they had like a really high like intact rate and all that sorts of stuff. And then when you started coddling them, it's almost like the same thing as that snake story when you go get me we need to get rid of these snakes, so I'll give you money for any sort of snake you bring to me, and then they start breeding snakes. It's like your incentives. You change incentives on stuff, and you mess things up.
Well, I'm pretty sure you go back to like the 60s. Well, no, you go back far enough to where Jim Crow laws still existed, and black families had a lower divorce rate than white families. Like they had more intact families. You're right.
Well, one of the things Thomas Sowell points out is like it really upsets him. Is he says there were slaves that when they were freed walked on their hands and knees miles and miles and miles to get back to their families. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to get back to like, and now it's like you can't even give me my family. You know, like that, just like the difference that happened right there. But Thomas Sowell talks about like growing up in Harlem and how he felt it was like completely safe and completely different and completely and then he watched it change. He watched it go worse. And it seems like some of those areas, like we have this lore, like it was always bad or rough, but not that it was doing pretty good. And then it got worse by messing up with the incentives of stuff. And that goes all the way back to Dan McClellan claiming that J.D. Vance doesn't care for his own because he doesn't coddle them. You know what I mean? But
oh God.
But that ordered love and that sort of thing, like I mean, it immediately jumps to bigotry. But I mean, I think about that, and like one of the big things I'm always preaching is like, don't be an oikophobe against your Mormon upbringing. And that doesn't mean that you have to go be Mormon or anything like that, but have some love for what you grew up and brought up around. But at the same time, too, like my upbringing was still 90s. My upbringing was Fresh Prince. It was Fresh Prince. You know what I mean? There were diverse people around at that time frame, and they were good people. And that is some of like my community that I think of. It's just what's happened lately, and I've noticed probably as much as like anybody's noticed, there's way more immigrants than ever before. Like I go to the gym and it's just like straight immigrants, but there's less. When you were younger, they were for sure all trying to integrate into the language and all that sorts of stuff. And now you get more of that. Instead of melting pot, you get the mosaic thing where they can truly stay siphoned off in like all their own little communities and not really intermix. And it's because it was too fast. Like things happen too fast, which I think happened like a bunch of different times throughout history in the U.S. I think there were some times where there was maybe like the Italians were coming into New York too fast, and that's where you got like a bunch of gang stuff out of it. Or the Irish were coming in too fast, and that's where you got I'm not saying that it probably happened with different ethnicities several different times throughout the history of the U.S., but they just got to integrate, you know what I mean? That's all it's really got to be. They got to integrate, and it can't come too crazy and willy-nilly. But then that USAID stuff had a bunch of stuff that showed that there was all sorts of people profiting off of those concepts too, and pushing them and coming up. It was the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing as the snake thing. Like if we need to help refugees, and you have an NGO that pays you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because of how many refugees you supposedly help, even though you hardly help them. Well, you got to get more refugees here. You know? And there's no reason for it to go away. And ordered love, man. I guess it just all comes back around to everything that's happening with the change of administration and all that stuff's going. It just kind of seems like it's a big rearrangement happening, but at the same time too, it's such a shakeup that I can't even guess like how good or bad it's going to be. One way or the other.
Where's she at?
We done did it. 3 hours. Made it all the way. Made it all the way. It was kind of staying on topic, but then we got off on that whole thing where we were trying to justify child sex. Like, dang it, we keep accidentally doing that, man.
He got up under the Michel Foucault, Chris Hansen debate, which I think we could expand on. But do you have anything else to show, or
no? Unless you had some funny thing or something like that. But I think it's.
I don't think I did.
I think it's all done, and I guess I should say for the sake of internets and all that stuff, and you should say it around the time frame that you say it. But all of my apologetics for queer theory, if it's not obvious to you, are meant as jokes. They're meant as I do not advocate I am 100% on board. And I think 18 is right about the perfect age. And then I actually do that. We were joking about the post minor stuff. And I wouldn't like throw some 37-year-old in jail for dating a 19-year-old. But in my life, I believe in the half your age plus 7 rule too. Still, I think that's a pretty good rule for people to follow.
Yeah, it's not a bad rule.
Yeah. So anyway, everybody who's all making comments down there in the thing.
We have Coach came in at last minute.
Yeah, everybody have a good one. I don't think there's nothing else.
Sweet.
I'm gonna try to make a AI Foucault. Well, Jonathan's already made it, so but anyway.
Well, enjoy.
Listen to the hymns, everybody. Have fun with your hymns. Go back to the hymns. I'll post that channel.
Well, cool.
All right.
I'll see you, man.
Have a good one.